Chapter 1260. However, many cultivators soon realized that this was only the effect of the shadows of the 4 Buddhist Vajras being stretched by the dim light. The initially restless crowd gradually calmed down. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo remained silent with a grim expression. After that fright, many cultivators even forgot that the 4 entrances of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple were completely sealed. Be it the Dharma Daojun or the conjoint body mighty figures, they were all trapped in the ancient temple. Right then, a cultivator realized this and observed the entrance of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, shouting, "Everyone, take a look. The entrance is completely sealed. What's there to be afraid of?" Another person was indifferent. "There are so many Tao lords and mighty figures guarding us. At most, we'll join forces to break through this stone door. Don't tell me this ancient temple can trap us here?" Boom. On the other side, a loud bang sounded. It was a conjoint body mighty figure trying to break through the door. Bang, bang, bang. The conjoint body mighty figure attacked the stone door consecutively and released a ferocious power. However, the stone door did not budge. The power of the conjoint body mighty figure was like a stone ox entering the sea, vanishing without a trace when it struck the stone door. "We can't get out of this ancient temple." The conjoint body mighty figure had a terrible expression. Even if the conjoint body mighty figures here join forces, they won't be able to shatter the stone door. Right then, another change happened. Rumble. Boom. Boom. A series of violent sounds echoed from the depths of the ancient temple. Many cultivators felt unsteady on their feet and leaped into midair hurriedly. Even so, the voids that the cultivators could see were still distorting. Even if they released their spirit consciousnesses, they could not detect much further, let alone their vision. Everything was shattered. Immediately after, all the cultivators felt as though they were pulled by a strange power. The world spun as they passed through layers of voids and arrived in another space. Su Zimo had the same experience and feeling. It was an indescribable feeling. It was familiar yet strange. He could not resist this pull at all. Many cultivators focused their gazes in a daze and were shocked to discover that they had already left the main hall of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple and arrived in another secret chamber. The secret room was completely sealed without any gaps. There were solid walls in all directions. Of course, although it was called a secret chamber, the size of this secret chamber was unimaginable. It was like a huge palace. Su Zimo looked around. Originally, there were more than 5,000 of them in the main hall of the ancient temple. At this moment, there were only slightly more than 500 people in this secret room with him. The group of cultivators seemed to have been forcibly separated by someone. Presumably, other than the 500 people in this secret chamber, the other cultivators were also in the same situation. They were forced to be isolated and descend into this enormous secret chamber. How could this be? Could it be that I've triggered some kind of mechanism or formation? Su Zimo frowned and pondered. Normally speaking, the most likely reason for such a phenomenon in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was that there was a mechanism array formation in the ancient temple. However, after observing the surroundings for a long time, he did not find any traces of formation patterns or mechanisms here. Connate Dharma treasure. Right then, a cultivator picked up an ancient mirror placed on a table in the secret chamber and took a closer look before exclaiming. Although the ancient mirror looked inconspicuous, one could clearly see that there were 6 dharmic patterns carved on the surface of the ancient mirror after wiping away the dust on it. Instantly, that voice attracted the attention of many cultivators. Initially, the more than 500 cultivators trapped in the secret chamber were still worried about how to get out. However, at that moment, many cultivators spread out and searched the secret chamber, wanting to discover more treasures. Unity Bone Corrosion Sword. A sword sect cultivator picked up a secret manual and could not help but be elated when he opened it. The reason why he came this time round was to find an ancient sword technique. However, the Unity Bone Corrosion Sword was lost in the ancient era and was extremely powerful. To think that he would really find it in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Before long, cultivators found what they wanted one after another. The number of treasures in this secret chamber was unimaginable. Su Zimo could only suppress his confusion for the time being and sniff gently before heading in a direction. His 5 senses were sharp and he could sniff out any elixirs quickly. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo arrived beside an elixir furnace. Beside the elixir furnace, there were many stone shelves with rows of spirit herbs that emitted a rich medicinal fragrance. Some cultivators had already arrived here and were fighting for them. Some of the cultivators had already started fighting with one another. Su Zimo did not move and merely paced around the elixir furnace. Thereafter, his gaze gradually froze as he squatted down and dug at the ashes beneath the elixir furnace, revealing half a jade bottle. Su Zimo took the jade bottle over and opened the stopper. His eyes lit up with a glint. 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixirs. Furthermore, there were 2 of them. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixirs were not placed on the shelves but buried in the ashes. With the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixirs, he would be halfway to his goal of this trip. Next, Su Zimo had to search for the Buddha beads and return alive. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's expression changed as though he had sensed something. Without turning back, he swung his arm and flung it behind him. At the same time, a figure appeared behind him and stabbed towards him with a sword raised. Su Zimo's palm collided with a sword, coiling, trembling and tugging. The long sword was snatched away by him. Without even looking, Su Zimo threw his sword out with a backhand swing. Blood flashed. The sword pierced through the cultivator's chest. However, the person shifted his body slightly and avoided being hit in his vitals. Su Zimo closed 2 fingers and slashed gently at the person with his sword fingers. He retaliated by snatching the sword and releasing sword chi. The series of counterattacks were as smooth as flowing water, without the slightest sluggishness. No matter how the Dharma Daojun struggled, he could not dodge the heaven-slaying sword chi. The moment the Dharma Daojun was pierced by his flying sword, he was sliced into 2 by the heaven-slaying sword art and his essence spirit was destroyed on the spot. Su Zimo did not have to take a look to know that this was the Dharma Daojun of Hidden Death Sect. Other than Hidden Death Sect, no other sect would be able to sneak up behind him at such a close distance without him noticing. He had just obtained the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir, but to think that it would attract killing intent so quickly. Araki Takashi, hand over the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir. A conjoint body mighty figure strode toward Su Zimo with a torch-like gaze and a powerful might. How dare you snatch my stuff? You must have a death wish. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold. This conjoint body mighty figure did not belong to any sect. Unless he had any powerful backup plans, Su Zimo could kill him with ease without even using his heaven and earth dharma characteristic. When the conjoint body mighty figure saw Su Zimo being chased by Lei Lai outside the ancient temple, he thought that Araki Takashi was nothing much and wanted to fight for the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir. However, he did not know that it was outside the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Everything was unknown. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir and Buddha beads had yet to appear. Naturally, Su Zimo would not fight Lei Lai. But now, he would not retreat even if he faced Lei Lai again. Exclamation point. Blood spewed out. Almost without any obstruction, the arm of the mighty figure was severed by the heaven-slaying sword chi and fell to the ground dripping with blood. This mighty figure was a ruthless character as well. Even after losing an arm, he did not make a sound. Gritting his teeth, he glared fiercely at Su Zimo and retreated, wanting to distance himself from Su Zimo. However, before he could take 2 steps, he grunted and blood drained from his face as his body swayed. Under normal circumstances, a conjoint body mighty figure could regrow their severed arm in the blink of an eye. However, at that moment, the mighty figure was shocked to discover that his severed arm was not even bleeding, let alone regrowing it. Furthermore, the remnant sharpness of the sword chi was still tearing at his wound and destroying his life force. That was the terror of the heaven-slaying sword chi. The 3 ancient sword arts destroyed life force and could not even regrow a severed arm. Finally, the mighty figure could not hold it in any longer and let out a tragic cry. His blood chi was severely drained and he staggered, almost falling. Right then, his vision darkened as though a huge shadow was shrouding him. Boom! The mystic magnet mountain descended and suppressed the mighty figure beneath the mountain. The blood chi of the mighty figure was almost completely destroyed by the heaven-slaying sword chi and could not withstand the pressure of the mystic magnet mountain at all. A mighty figure who stood at the peak of the cultivation world was crushed into a bloody pulp without even a corpse and essence spirit before he could make a sound. The cultivators were moved. It was way too tragic. To be able to cultivate to the conjoint body realm and become a mighty figure, one had to experience countless dangers, opportunities, and fortuitous encounters. Unfortunately, it was just a great battle, and he ended up dying. It was truly a pity. The path of cultivation was a path that defied the heavens and was filled with dangers. That was definitely not a lie. After that battle, no one else in the secret chamber dared to challenge Su Zimo anymore. Although there were still a few conjoint body mighty figures, none of them dared to act rashly. A furious argument sounded from the other side of the secret chamber. Great Unity Creation Elixir. Hand it over. I, Tao Lord Ji Qing, am definitely going to get that elixir. Let's see who dares to fight with me. Immediately, another Dharma Dao Jun from a super sect stood out. The Great Unity Creation Elixir was also an ancient elixir. It was said that as long as the Dharma Dao Jun consumed one, he would be able to break through a minor cultivation realm. It was definitely a creation of heaven and earth. Although he felt that something was amiss, Su Zimo was tempted when he heard the name Great Unity Creation Elixir. Bang, bang, bang. In order to fight for the Great Unity Creation Elixir, almost 100 Dharma Dao Jun were already fighting. Many dharmic arts collided and a series of sounds could be heard. Right then, a few conjoint body mighty figures in the secret chamber faced off as well because of an ancient cultivation technique. I'm here for this incomplete manual. This is an incomplete manual that has been lost for many years in Purple Sun Sect. Fellow Taoists, please give me some face. After we leave this place, my sect will definitely reward you handsomely. Purple Sun Sect, one of the upper sects of the Middle Continent. A mighty figure of Purple Sun Sect cupped his fists with a hint of pleading in his tone. Heh! A mighty figure sneered, you make it sound so easy. The treasures in this ancient temple are all ownerless. Do you think it's Purple Sun Sect just because you say so? That's right. Another mighty figure nodded. If you want the treasures, you've got to show some capabilities. None of the cultivators who came to the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple wanted to return empty-handed. The few mighty figures did not say much before they started fighting as well. In the secret chamber, cultivators discovered treasures one after another and great battles broke out one after another. It was a mess. The only one who could truly stay out of it was Su Zimo. Those cultivators were still rational and none of them dared to provoke him easily. As time passed by, more and more cultivators died in the secret chamber. Corpses were strewn all over the ground and scarlet blood stained the ground. Chapter 1262. Time passed. There were still no signs of the killing in the secret chamber stopping. As more treasures appeared, more and more cultivators fell into a frenzy. Some even lost their rationality and killed with bloodshot eyes. Initially, there were more than 500 cultivators in the secret chamber. However, half of them were left after half an incense stick's time. As time passed by, the number of cultivators in the secret chamber was still decreasing rapidly. Even Su Zimo had an urge to kill all the cultivators in the secret chamber and take all the treasures when he smelled the blood stench in the secret chamber. However, he was still able to retain a trace of rationality. The current situation was not normal. Or rather, the entire process from the moment he entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was strange. Su Zimo had a feeling that he had overlooked something. His essence spirit in his consciousness began to chant Buddhist sutras and tried its best to maintain clarity. Boom! Right then, a loud bang sounded from one of the walls of the secret chamber and cracks appeared on it, spreading continuously. Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, the wall collapsed and dust billowed. On the other side of the wall, a group of cultivators was fighting for treasures as well. When they heard the sound of the wall collapsing, the cultivators on both sides paused for a moment and looked over. "Araki Takashi!" Right then, a furious roar sounded from the other side of the wall. Truly, enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Who would have thought that the wall of the secret chamber would suddenly shatter and Elder Lei Lai of Chaos Essence sect would be on the other side? Elder Lei Lai's clothes were stained with blood as well. It was clear that he had just experienced a huge battle and was striding over with a strong killing intent. On the left of Elder Lei Lai, there was also a conjoint body mighty figure walking in the air. He was like an unsheathed sword with a sharp edge as he glared at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. A mighty figure of sword sect. On the right of Elder Lei Lai, a mighty figure stepped on lightning and tore through the air with a sharp gaze and a murderous aura. A mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace. The mighty figures of 3 super sects were here. Conjoint body mighty figures of super sects had terrifying combat strength that far surpassed ordinary mighty figures. Right now, Su Zimo was only at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. Apart from a minor cultivation realm, there was still a major cultivation realm between him and conjoint body mighty figures. He could suppress ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. However, it was still unknown whether he could win against the almighties of these super sects. "Araki Takashi, let's see where you can run to this time." Elder Lei Lai sneered. "Escape?" Su Zimo also sneered and said, "You want to kill me with just the 3 of you?" If he was at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm, he would not have the confidence to fight head-on with the conjoint body mighty figures of the 3 super sections. But now, he was at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm and his combat strength had increased exponentially. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics had already grown to a height of 87 feet. "Great primeval chaos palm." Elder Lei Lai shouted and instantly appeared in front of Su Zimo. He stretched out his palm, which seemed to have condensed into a huge millstone and crushed down on Su Zimo. This was the strongest secret skill of Chaos Essence sect. Back then, Yin was able to sweep through those of the same cultivation realm with this great primeval chaos palm. Elder Lei Lai's great primeval chaos palm was clearly much stronger than Di Yin's. His palm truly possessed the power of heaven and earth. When that palm slammed down, Su Zimo felt as though he was not fighting against a person, but the entire world and could be crushed at any moment. Startling sword. The mighty figure of sword sect slashed with his sword. A bedazzling sword beam descended like a startling flash that could not be looked at. There were many sword Dao inheritances in sword sect, but the strongest were the lifeless sword Dao and startling sword Dao. As for the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace, he did not use any secret skills and released his blood chi directly. Wielding a gigantic hammer that shone with lightning arcs, he smashed it down on Su Zimo's head. 3 mighty figures attacked at the same time. A terrifying power surged over like a tsunami and was suffocating. It was too strong. The 3 mighty figures were more than a single level stronger than the conjoint body mighty figure that died in the hands of Su Zimo earlier on. Against that pressure, Su Zimo reared his head and roared. Instantly, 3 figures darted out of his body and rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they were already 80 feet tall. After 80 feet, they did not stop and grew to a height of 87 feet before long. Heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. The crowd was shocked. Even some of the cultivators who were initially fighting stopped temporarily and looked over with dumbfounded gazes. How is that possible? Araki Takashi's heaven and earth Dharma characteristics aren't 2, but 3. At the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm, he managed to condense 3 87 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. That's way too terrifying. Among those of the same cultivation realm, who can be a match for Araki Takashi? Normally speaking, anyone who could cultivate a 87 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could be considered a heaven-defying monster incarnate. For Su Zimo to release 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics was already beyond the knowledge of many cultivators. Even Elder Lei Lai and the other 2 were shocked. The Thunderdermic body wielded a whip and whipped it towards the incoming Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace. The whip shone with the power of thunder and crackled in midair. With a destructive aura, it was extremely agile and coiled towards the arm of the Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace. The Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace wielded a gigantic hammer. Among dermic weapons, weapons such as axes and hammers were the most ferocious. However, the whip of the thunder dermic body was flexible and flexible. It countered the gigantic hammer of the Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace perfectly. The whip did not take the gigantic hammer head-on. Instead, like an agile snake, it landed on Elder Zephyr Thunder's arm and coiled a few times, releasing a powerful power of thunder. The mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace grunted and felt a sharp pain in his arm, as though it was pricked by a needle. A look of shock flashed through his eyes. He was at the conjoint body realm, and yet, that was the case. He could not imagine the consequences if the Dharma Daojuan's arm was coiled by the whip. The life force of his entire arm would probably be destroyed instantly. On the other side, against Elder Lei Lai's great chaos essence palm, the Rulai dermic body lowered its gaze with a dignified expression. It chanted mysterious sutras and extended its palm as well. The palm of the Rulai dermic body seemed to be covered in a layer of gold as it shone with a resplendent golden light and collided with the great chaos essence palm. The two palms collided. The Rulai dermic body shuddered slightly, but its feet did not move. Su Zimo was as steady as a rock as he conjured the immovable foundation seal secretly to neutralize the impact and residual power of the great chaos essence palm. As for the heavenly fiend dermic body, it was against the mighty figure of Sword Sect. The startling sword was indeed incomparably startling. However, the sword beam fell into the rumbling pitch-black fiend chi and slowed down. It was no longer startling and was shattered by the heavenly fiend scythe. The first attack of the three conjoint body mighty figures of Super Sex was neutralized by Su Zimo's three heaven and earth dharma characteristics. At that moment, Su Zimo stood in the middle. 387 feet tall heaven and earth dharma characteristics protected him like ancient titans as they waved their arms and fought against the three mighty figures. At that moment, Su Zimo seemed to possess 3 heads and 6 arms. Chapter 1263. Firmament Art. Royal Divine Sword. Zephyr Thunderstrike. The three conjoint body mighty figures of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace attacked at the same time and released the top dermic arts of their sects. The dermic powers of conjoint body mighty figures were definitely boundless. Even the most ordinary dermic arts released by conjoint body mighty figures would release terrifying lethality, let alone top-tier dermic arts as such. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly and he had a fearless expression. Controlling his 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics with his spirit consciousness, he waved his 6 arms and fought against the 3 mighty figures. Bang, bang, bang. Each time both sides clashed, a deafening sound would be heard. Elder Lei Lai and the other 2 came from super sects and cultivated top-tier cultivation techniques and secret skills. Every single move they made could cause mountains to collapse and rivers to flow. This was the true power of the conjoint body realm. Their bodies seemed to have fused with heaven and earth and could not be shaken at all. Su Zimo's heaven and earth dharma characteristic was like an ancient mighty spirit and could only barely fight against the 3 mighty figures. Each time they clashed, the 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics shuddered. I'm still a little inferior compared to the conjoint body mighty figures of super sections. Su Zimo lamented internally. If his heaven and earth dharma characteristic could grow to 89 feet or 90 feet tall, he would be able to suppress these conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo did not know that although Elder Lei Lai and the other 2 had the upper hand at that moment, the shock in their hearts was at its peak. The 3 of them were all almighties from super sects. Given their combat strength, it would not be a problem for them to suppress 100 mighty figures of the same cultivation realm single-handedly. But now, Dharma Daojun could take on 3 of them single-handedly. Furthermore, although they had the upper hand, they could not shatter the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics no matter how they channeled their dermic arts or released their trump cards. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were more corporeal than any heaven and earth Dharma characteristic they had seen before. It's truly hard to imagine how Araki Takashi managed to cultivate to this extent. The thought flashed across Elder Lei Lai's mind. Before this, they had also heard some news about Su Zimo, such as the #1 of the phenomenon ranking, the Tao inheritance ground, killing many titular disciples, and Araki Takashi establishing the Tao. However, in the depths of their hearts, they did not truly view Su Zimo as a great enemy. They were conjoint body mighty figures. Even if Su Zimo entered the Transcendence realm, there was still a huge gap between them. This was an insurmountable gap. At this moment, Elder Lei Lai and the other two finally felt how terrifying Su Zimo was. Tao Lord Araki Takashi, who was only at the Dharma characteristic realm, could already fight against experts like them. If Araki Takashi were to advance to the conjoint body realm, wouldn't he be able to dominate Tianhuang mainland? Elder Lei Lai finally understood one thing. Half-martial ancestor D Fan of the sect had once disregarded his status and killed Tao Lord Araki Takashi, who was at the Void Reversion realm. It was not only because his clansman, D-In, was killed. There was another important reason. D Fan had sensed Araki Takashi's terrifying potential. They had to make use of this opportunity to kill Araki Takashi here. Kill! Almost at the same time, the three conjoint body mighty figures channeled their blood chi and dermic powers to their limits, suppressing Su Zimo. As long as they could break through the defenses of the three heaven and earth dharma characteristics, they would be able to close in and kill Araki Takashi completely with the physique and bloodline of conjoint body mighty figures. Although Qinglian's true body was tough, it could not defend against the physique of a mighty figure. Avicii Hell. Sandstorm. Purple Thunderstorm. Under the protection of the three Dharma Daojun, Su Zimo changed hand seals repeatedly and released more than 30 dermic arts in a single breath. In an instant, the magic power in the hall began to boil. Bang, bang, bang. Elder Lei Lai and the other two were shocked. They had not expected Su Zimo's counterattack to be so ferocious. They could not stabilize themselves against the impact of more than 30 dermic arts and retreated continuously, let alone close in. So many dermic arts, some cultivators were shocked and speechless when they saw that. Any single one of those dermic arts was enough to cause countless Tao lords to fight for it. To think that Su Zimo would release more than 30 of them in a single breath. What sort of strength was that? The three conjoint body mighty figures were forced back by Su Zimo. However, his counterattack had yet to stop. Swoosh! Suddenly, 3 balls of flames appeared beside Su Zimo. Scarlet, Immortal Tao Fire. Gold, Buddhist Tao Fire. Black, Fiend Tao Fire. When the 3 balls of flames appeared, the temperature in the entire hall rose. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and the 3 balls of flames gathered rapidly. The Samadhi Tao Fire had descended. Many cultivators retreated one after another. Some cultivators who were initially fighting elsewhere were incinerated by the heat of the Samadhi Tao Fire the moment they conjured their dermic arts. Go! Su Zimo hollered softly and sent the Samadhi Tao Fire towards Elder Lei Lai. How dare you embarrass yourself with this puny flame? Elder Lei Lai sneered as he extended his hand, wanting to crush the ball of flame. This puny flame is enough to take your life. Before he finished his sentence, a stream of essence spirit fire burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella and entered the Samadhi Tao Fire instantly. The power of the Tao Fire increased exponentially. Kacharati Tao Fire. This kind of increase in power was not just a 10% or 20% increase, but it had directly increased by 100%. However, the Samadhi Tao Fire was truly not a threat to Elder Lei Lai and the others. They could extinguish the Samadhi Tao Fire with a casual punch. However, even the bodies of conjoint body mighty figures could not withstand the power of the Kacharati Tao Fire. Not good. We've been tricked. Elder Lei Lai's expression changed. Su Zimo's 4th Essence Spirit Fire was released by Elder Lei Lai when he was about to grab the Samadhi Tao Fire in his hands. At that moment, it was already too late for Elder Lei Lai to stop. Swoosh! Instantly, the flame exploded in Elder Lei Lai's palm and burst forth with a terrifying power of fire. The flesh on Elder Lei Lai's palm sizzled from the heat and even revealed the white bones within in a shocking manner. Ah! Elder Lei Lai's face was pale as he let out a tragic cry. The Kachirati Dao fire burned at an extremely fast speed and spread along his palm towards his entire arm. The sleeves of his robe instantly turned to ashes. His entire arm was enveloped by the Kachirati Dao fire. Swoosh! Elder Lei Lai channeled his blood chi wildly, wanting to suppress the Kachirati Dao fire on his arm. However, his bloodline had yet to reach the tsunami blood level and collided with the Kachirati Dao fire with sizzling sounds, resulting in a stalemate. To Elder Lei Lai, such a stalemate was an even greater torment. Half of his arm was still burned by the Kachirati Dao fire and the flesh on it had already been burned to ashes, leaving only bones. The bodies of mighty figures were indeed terrifying. Even with the power of the Kachirati Dao fire, it could only incinerate Elder Lei Lai's flesh but could not burn his bones to ashes. A ruthless glint flashed through Elder Lei Lai's eyes. He withdrew a cold saber in reverse and was prepared to sever his arm to resolve the pain. Chapter 1264. A conjoint body mighty figure could regrow their severed arm. Although it would drain a lot of blood chi, it was much better than being burned by the Kachirati Dao fire and enduring the torture and pain. Watch out! Unexpectedly, he heard two hurried shouts. It was a warning from the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace not far away. Immediately after, a strong sense of danger surged into his heart. A white sword intent slashed down with a boundless murderous intent, as if it was going to slice the rift in half. Boom! The Rulai-dermic body strode forward and extended a gigantic golden palm, crushing down on Elder Lei Lai with the might of heaven and earth. How dare you! Elder Lei Lai was enraged. Araki Takashi, are you trying to kill me? He was injured by the Kachirati Dao fire and spent most of his attention thinking about how to destroy it. However, Su Zimo seized the initiative. As for the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace, they were blocked by the heavenly fiend Dharma body and Thunderdermic body and could not save him. Initially, the three of them were attacking Su Zimo. Suddenly, it turned into a one-on-one fight between Elder Lei Lai and Su Zimo. This was a form of control over the situation. In this aspect, not many people could compare to Su Zimo. Great Chaos Essence Palm. Elder Lei Lai raised his intact left arm and released his sex secret skill, colliding heavily with the golden palm above his head. At the same time, he raised his right arm that was burned by the Kachirati Dao fire and blocked the heaven-slaying sword chi. Exclamation point! The heaven-slaying sword chi severed Elder Lei Lai's right arm. The severed arm fell to the ground. Without the protection of conjoint body dermic powers, the Kachirati Dao fire burned brightly and burned the severed arm to ashes instantly. Araki Takashi, thank you. Elder Lei Lai sneered. He had lived for more than 10,000 years and had experienced countless battles up till this point of his cultivation. He was extremely experienced in combat. Just now, he had made use of the heaven-slaying sword chi to sever his arm. Not only did he neutralize the sharpness of the heaven-slaying sword chi, he even dealt with the Kachirati Dao fire burning on his arm. Anyone who could cultivate to the conjoint body realm was not easy to deal with. Thank me. Su Zimo's voice rang out behind him. It was incomparably cold. My big gift to you is still behind. After Elder Lei Lai thanked him, he felt that something was amiss. He wanted to stimulate his chi and blood to grow a new arm. However, the wound on his severed arm was still filled with sword chi, which was constantly tearing at his wound, causing him to bleed profusely. Of course, with his magic power, as long as he rested for a few days, he would be able to expel the sword chi from his broken arm. But at this time, he was in the middle of the battlefield, and Su Zimo had quietly appeared behind him. He had no chance at all. This unforeseen event had completely exceeded Elder Lei Lai's expectations. The impact on him was too great. Fellow Taoists, help me! A trace of panic flashed across Elder Lei Lai's eyes as he yelled out, help me delay this kid for a moment. Too late. Su Zimo sneered, then suddenly opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. Kill. Thunderclap kill descended. That was a sound domain secret skill that was released instantly and was difficult to defend against. Under normal circumstances, given Elder Lei Lai's physique and bloodline, Su Zimo's thunderclap kill should not have affected him at all. But now, Elder Lei Lai had lost an arm and his blood chi was flowing without stopping. He was in a state of panic. This loud roar almost broke his guts. Elder Lei Lai shuddered and paused for a moment. Su Zimo seized the opportunity and a green beam of light flew out from his glabella. It was the Creation Lotus platform. Su Zimo reached out and grabbed the Creation Lotus platform in his palm, smashing it down viciously towards Elder Lei Lai's head. Bang! This time, it was a solid hit. Even with Qinglian's true body, it was difficult for her to break through Elder Lei Lai's body. However, the Creation Lotus platform was different. Even though it was not the complete form of Qinglian and was only a lotus platform, its toughness was not something a body of flesh and blood could defend against. With that, Elder Lei Lai's head split open and his flesh splattered everywhere. A huge chunk of Elder Lei Lai's head caved in and more than half of his skull was shattered. Pissed, the group of cultivators gasped in shock. It was way too tragic. A conjoint body mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect was beaten to such a state. An essence spirit left his body and fled into the distance with a flustered expression. It was Elder Lei Lai. However, before his essence spirit could escape far, he felt his vision turn black, as though 5 gigantic mountains were closing in on him rapidly. This, Elder Lei Lai's pupils constricted violently. He did not know what was going on. However, bystanders saw things more clearly. Many cultivators had long noticed that before Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit left his body, the 80 feet tall Rulidermic body was already guarding there with its gigantic palm open. Although Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit fled, it could not escape from the palm of the Rulidermic body. The 5 mountains he saw were merely 5 fingers of the Rulidermic body. Boom! The Rulidermic body closed its fingers and gripped its palm tightly. Instantly, Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit was crushed by the palm of the Rulidermic body and was destroyed on the spot. The entire hull fell silent for a moment. A conjoint body mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect was killed by the Dharma Daojun, and even his essence spirit could not escape. Furthermore, this was in a 1 versus 3 situation. Initially, the 3 mighty figures could not take down Su Zimo even when they surrounded him. Now that Elder Lei Lai was dead, only the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace were left. Su Zimo turned around with a cold gaze. With a single thought, the Rulidermic body charged over and joined the battle as well. 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics fought against 2 mighty figures. This time round, the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace were already disadvantaged. From time to time, Su Zimo released heaven-slaying sword chi at the side and it was impossible to defend against. As time passed by, the 2 mighty figures retreated wretchedly. Boom! Before long, the Rulidermic body found an opportunity and punched the mighty figure of Sword Sect in the chest, sending him flying. The mighty figure of Sword Sect flew thousands of feet away and slammed heavily against the wall behind him. He slid down slowly with a pained expression and his tendons and bones felt like they were about to break. Of course, that punch alone was not enough to threaten his life. With the mighty figure of Sword Sect defeated, the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace was the only one left and he could not defend against the ferocious attacks of the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. Exclamation point! Blood flashed. The abdomen of the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace was torn open by the saber of the heavenly fiend Dermic body and his organs almost slipped out. Immediately after, the whip of the Thunder Dermic body whipped the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace and sent him flying, slamming against the wall as well. Both Almighties had been defeated. Su Zimo was victorious in a 1 versus 3 fight. Boom! The mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace slammed into the wall and caused it to collapse. Countless limestone and sand fell and dust billowed. The mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace took advantage of the chaos to escape towards the other side of the wall. Su Zimo sped forward. When he arrived at the edge of the wall, he stopped in his tracks instinctively. On the other side of the wall was another group of cultivators trapped in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. At that moment, they were fighting and there were only slightly more than 100 people left. Dao Lord Purple Sword of Sword Sect and Monk Black Gold of Diamond Monastery were among them. Su Zimo frowned. Something was amiss. The strange feeling lingering in his heart became more and more obvious. Chapter 1265. Every single cultivator was extremely exhausted after the consecutive battles. It was the same for Su Zimo. After all, he was only at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. His dharmic powers were depleted after suppressing the mighty figures of 3 super sections. His 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were already at the end of their rope and were dim. The cultivators who were able to survive until now in these secret chambers were all experts with countless trump cards. None of them were easy to deal with. Su Zimo was still thinking about the strange feeling he had when he entered the ancient temple. He stood on the spot motionlessly and did not continue to chase after the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Not far from Su Zimo, an inconspicuous wooden fish in the dust suddenly exploded and 2 golden beams of light burst forth from within, speeding towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo had sensed it long ago and could not help but feel shocked when he swept his gaze. He could clearly see that the 2 golden beams of light were 2 Buddha beads. More importantly, the material, size and even aura of the 2 Buddha beads were identical to the Mingwang prayer beads on his left wrist. 2 different dharmic seals were etched on the 2 Buddha beads as well. They were the last 2 Buddha beads lost by the Mingwang prayer beads. Even with Su Zimo's temperament, he was excited when he saw the 2 Buddha beads. After all, the dharmic seals on the 2 Buddha beads were the strongest and most ferocious among the Daming dharmic seals. Furthermore, if the 2 Buddha beads were connected to the 4 Buddha beads on his left wrist, the Mingwang prayer beads would be complete. The dharmic weapon that was once the cornerstone of Daming Monastery would be able to unleash its true might. The Mingwang prayer beads had been passed down for a long time and only the titular disciples of Daming Monastery had a chance of wearing them. Unfortunately, the Mingwang prayer beads were scattered and lost in a huge battle tens of thousands of years ago and were never gathered again. But now, Su Zimo had the opportunity to restore the Mingwang prayer beads. How could he not be tempted? Monk Yuan Bei was already past his prime. The Daming Temple was long gone. If he could restore the Mingwang prayer beads, it would have an extraordinary meaning for Monk Yuan Bei, Daming Monastery and even Su Zimo himself. Without any hesitation, Su Zimo reached out his hand and grabbed the 2 Buddha beads. Araki Takeshi, this belongs to Buddhism. You can't touch it. Monk Black Gold hollered and charged forward with widened eyes. His entire body shone with a golden light as though he was covered in a layer of gold foil, exuding a godly aura that was dazzling and impossible to look at. Su Zimo sneered. This is indeed a Buddhist item, but what does it have to do with your Vajra temple? How dare you try to snatch the Mingwang prayer beads? The entire cultivation world knew that Su Zimo had inherited the legacy of Daming Temple. In Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo was probably the only one qualified to wear the Mingwang prayer beads. I don't care who you are, I'm determined to get the Mingwang prayer beads. Don't blame me for killing anyone who tries to snatch them from me. The reason why Monk Black Gold came here was for the Mingwang prayer beads. Even if he was up against Su Zimo, he had nothing to fear. He was second on the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. Boom! Monk Black Gold extended his palm and his blood chi surged. The bloodline on his palm expanded and shone with a golden light. With an endless might, he crushed down on Su Zimo's head. Vajra Temple specialized in body tempering and was the strongest in melee combat among the Buddhist monasteries. Although Monk Black Gold's bloodline had not been cultivated to the tsunami blood realm, there was already the faint sound of tides flowing when he channeled his blood chi. The moment Su Zimo grabbed the 2 Buddha beads, Monk Black Gold's attack had already descended. He willed. The 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics of the thunder dharmic body, Rulai dharmic body and heavenly fiend dharma body attacked at the same time and suppressed Monk Black Gold. Even though the 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics were exhausted, They were not something that could be taken head-on with a physical body. Boom! A loud bang sounded from Monk Black Gold's body and a gigantic figure appeared above his head, shimmering with endless golden light. This was the first time he had used his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic after entering the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. 10 feet 6 golden body. The legacy Dharma characteristic of Vajra Temple. Cultivators who cultivated this Dharma characteristic would be able to conjure heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that were 60 feet tall at early stage Dharma characteristic realm. As their cultivation increased, their Dharma characteristics would continue to climb. Back then, Monk Black Gold only lost to Tao Lord Immortal's sword by a single move. His 10 feet 6 golden body was also 85 feet tall. However, that was on the battlefield of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking and was close to 1,000 years ago. Right now, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that Monk Black Gold cultivated was already 89 feet tall and was the same as Tao Lord Immortal's sword. Boom! The 10 feet 6 golden body collided heavily against Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. The 10 feet 6 golden body shuddered. Although the 10 feet 6 golden body was taller than Su Zimo's 3 Dharma characteristics in terms of height, it was still a little lacking if it wanted to take on 3 of them alone. Furthermore, the 10 feet 6 golden body was much weaker than the Lulai Dermic body in terms of grade. Even though the 3 battered heaven and earth Dharma characteristics released a terrifying power that shattered Monk Black Gold's 10 feet 6 golden body completely. After that battle, Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were riddled with holes as well. Formless heaven and earth. Right then, a clear voice sounded. It was calm and indifferent but contained immense power that descended on Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics instantly. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics dissipated at a visible speed. Su Zimo swept his gaze. The one who attacked was a conjoint body mighty figure from Formless Monastery. There was a secret skill in Formless Monastery known as Formless Heaven and Earth. Once released, that secret skill could cause the opponent's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. The name of Formless Monastery was related to that secret skill as well. In the previous Dharma characteristic ranking, the monks of Formless Monastery were the ones that many cultivators were most unwilling to face. Imagine that the battle had just begun and one's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was destroyed by a single secret skill. How was one supposed to fight? Of course, that secret skill was not invincible. In order to cause the other party's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to collapse, the monk of Formless Monastery had to have a sufficient cultivation realm and an extremely deep understanding of that secret skill as well. Furthermore, that secret skill was useless against supreme Dharma characteristics. At that moment, it was not only Diamond Monastery and Formless Monastery. Even the monks of Hollow Monastery and Wisdom Monastery and the nuns of Clear Heart Nunnery had targeted Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was besieged once more. Araki Takashi, let's see how long more you can last without your heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Monk Black Gold hollered. The moment he said that, a dull thud sounded from his chest. It was dull and powerful, like the beating of a drum by an ancient heavenly god. There should be no place for one's heart to be born. The words that came out of Monk Black Gold's mouth were sonorous and powerful like the clashing of metal. It was another dull thud. Others might not know, but Su Zimo cultivated many Buddhist sutras and knew that it was a sutra from Diamond Monastery's secret sutra, the Diamond Sutra. By comprehending the profoundness within and cultivating it to perfection, one would be able to conjure an incomparably powerful diamond heart. With the diamond heart, one's blood chi would increase exponentially and their combat strength would increase by several levels. Those 2 dull thuds were none other than the beating of Monk Black Gold's diamond heart. Chapter 1266. There was naturally a reason why Monk Black Gold was able to reach second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 1,000 years ago. Swoosh. Monk Black Gold's blood chi surged and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. With the help of the diamond heart, Monk Black Gold's bloodline reached the tsunami blood realm. Araki Takashi, Hand over the Buddha beads and I'll spare your life. Monk Black Gold strode toward Suzimo and his eyes bulged slightly. They were menacing and shone with a resplendent golden light. Monk Black Gold was even using the visual technique of Diamond Monastery. Suzimo looked at Monk Black Gold and a thought flashed through his mind. His hand that was holding the Buddha beads suddenly trembled. To everyone's surprise, Suzimo suddenly threw the 2 Buddha beads in his hands over. Many cultivators were stunned by the sudden turn of events. Dao Lord Araki Takashi had always been sharp. To think that he would submit because of a single sentence from Monk Black Gold? Or could it be that Araki Takashi was truly exhausted and could no longer fight? Many cultivators were puzzled. However, everyone threw their doubts to the back of their minds and attacked to fight for the Buddha beads. The battle was completely ignited. As for Suzimo, he became an outsider instead. Standing at the periphery of the battlefield, a look of shock flashed through his eyes as he murmured softly, "It's fake, it's all fake." He had long sensed that something was amiss. Everything seemed to be going too smoothly. From the moment they entered the secret chamber, every cultivator was able to find what they wanted without spending much time or effort. Initially, Suzimo thought that the treasures in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple were truly endless. However, it was only when he saw Monk Black Gold and fought with him that he recalled the Diamond Sutra that he gradually understood. The Diamond Sutra was a secret manual of Diamond Monastery and Suzimo had never cultivated it before. However, in the Tao Inheritance Ground, he obtained some Buddhist legacies. Among them, one of the legacies of a Buddhist mighty figure mentioned some content about the Diamond Sutra. Suzimo opened his mouth gently and recited a passage of scripture. Everything that has its way is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble or a shadow. It is like dew or lightning. You should observe it as such. This passage of scripture was ordinary, but each character seemed to contain a mysterious power. As the scripture was recited, the scene in front of Suzimo kept changing until it finally stopped. There was no secret chamber or treasure in front of him. He was still in the hall where he had just entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. On the surrounding walls were the 4 tall and ferocious guardian deities. Under the wall, the green lamp flickered, eerie and sinister. Nothing had changed. None of them, had left the hall. Suzimo could see countless corpses and blood everywhere he looked. The entire hall was dyed red with blood, and the smell of blood filled the air. He saw Monk Black Gold, Tao Lord Purple Sword, the mighty figures of the Sword Sect, and Zephyr Thunder Palace. Those people were still fighting. Haha. Monk Black Gold reared his head and laughed maniacally. I've got it. The Mingwang prayer beads are mine. Suzimo looked at this scene in shock and shuddered, goosebumps rising all over his body. What Monk Black Gold was holding in his hands were not the Mingwang prayer beads, but 2 bloody eyeballs. However, Monk Black Gold, all the cultivators present, including Suzimo earlier on, were hallucinating and thought that the 2 eyeballs were the Mingwang prayer beads. This is the ancient Overlord Spear of Overlord Palace. Anyone who dares to fight for it will be an enemy of Overlord Palace. A Tao Lord of the Fiend Sects killed in all directions with torrential fiend flames. However, what he was holding in his hands was not the ancient Overlord Spear, but a bone that came out of nowhere. A cultivator hid in a corner and gulped down mouthfuls of blood on the ground. However, he mumbled, "The heavens are truly on my side. To think that I would be able to find the primordial divine spring in this ancient temple. Madness. Everyone had gone mad. They could not see anything clearly in this hallucination. The only way they could see everything that was happening in the hall clearly was if they escaped. All the treasures were fake. However, it was real that many cultivators were fighting. There were at least 5,000 cultivators who entered the hall. However, there were less than 1,000 left. Furthermore, that number was still decreasing rapidly. Suddenly, Suzimo recalled something and hurriedly took out the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir that he had obtained from his storage bag. The elixir was the same as what he had seen. In other words, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir was real. There was truth and falsehood in the entire situation. Truth and falsehood were like illusions. At that moment, Su Zimo was in a daze and could not tell. What was even more frightening was who set up this trap and included more than 5,000 cultivators who entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Even conjoint body mighty figures could not break free from this hallucination. Even with Su Zimo's Dao heart, he was deceived for a long time before he woke up. Who was it? What was that person's cultivation realm? Dharma characteristic realm? Conjoint body realm? Why did he set up such a trap? Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled the many legends about the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. He vaguely realized that there was something wrong with the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple to begin with. All these years, the cultivators who died in the ancient temple most likely died in their own hallucinations without waking up. The battle in the surroundings continued. Even Monk Black Gold, who was number 2 on the Dharma characteristic ranking, was killed by a mighty figure after killing many cultivators consecutively and died on the spot. Even until his death, Monk Black Gold did not break free from the hallucination. His eyes were still widened in anger and indignance. Su Zimo wanted to wake those cultivators up from their hallucinations, but it was impossible. The moment he approached, those cultivators seemed to be agitated and attacked him crazily, thinking that he was here to snatch their treasures. In reality, those so-called treasures were merely bones and severed limbs. Some cultivators even held a human head in their hands, treating it like a treasure. Their expressions were intoxicated. His spirit perception was constantly warning him. His spirit perception had been warning him the moment he stepped into the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. However, Su Zimo could not sense where the danger was at all. He had already obtained the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir and only wanted to leave this Grand Primordium Ancient Temple that was even more terrifying than the infernal hell. Bang, bang, bang. Su Zimo dodged some cultivators and attacked repeatedly, striking the 4 stone doors of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. However, his strength could not shake the stone doors at all. He could not get out. Suddenly, a sinister wind blew in the sealed hall. Su Zimo felt a chill run down his spine, as though someone was approaching. He hurriedly summoned the Creation Lotus platform and turned around to look above his head. There was nothing. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and stabilized his Dao heart, chanting internally, "Everything is possible. It's like a dream, an illusion, a bubble or a shadow. It's like dew or lightning. It's like that." Immediately after, he felt his hair stand on end. He merely repeated that sentence in his heart. However, he clearly heard those words in his ears. Every single word echoed in the hall. It was a completely unfamiliar voice. It was mellow, peaceful, pure, and had a unique magnetism. However, to Su Zimo, it sounded like the voice of a devil from hell that sent chills down his spine. In this hall, apart from him who was sober and could say that, there was another sober person who was probably the one who set this up. Chapter 1267. Su Zimo did not move at all and tried his best to remain calm with a cold glint in his eyes. The voice was erratic and he could not determine where the person who set up the trap was. Furthermore, he was the only one who could hear the voice. The other cultivators in the ancient temple were still immersed in their illusions and fought continuously. They did not hear the voice at all. Fellow Taoist, you're truly capable to be able to comprehend such an illusion's secret skill from the Diamond Sutra. Su Zimo suddenly spoke. Although he had not cultivated the Diamond Sutra before, he knew that it was a body-tempering cultivation technique of Diamond Monastery. Throughout history, there had never been any monk of Diamond Monastery who managed to comprehend such a secret skill from the Diamond Sutra. One could imagine the level of comprehension and talent of the person who set this up in Buddhism. There were many types of illusions in the cultivation world. The sect that specialized in illusions was Illusion Fiend Cult of the Fiend Sections. However, Su Zimo had fought against the paragons of Illusion Fiend Cult before. Even the secret skills of Illusion Fiend Cult could not confuse him. Up till this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo had never encountered such a terrifying illusion technique. Actually, he was already extremely wary and cautious the moment he entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Even so, he was still tricked. Even now, he could not figure out when the illusion descended. Was it after he entered the ancient temple or after he snatched the 9 revolutions soul return elixir? The feeling that the person who set this up gave Suzimo was that he was scarier than any of the enemies he had encountered in the past. Even people like Di-in and Dao Lord Hatred did not give him the same pressure as this person. This was an extremely dangerous existence. In fact, Suzimo did not know anything about him. His initial guess was that there was a high chance that the person who set this up was an expert of the Buddhist monasteries. On the one hand, Suzimo was truly shocked by the methods of the person who set this up. On the other hand, he was probing to capture the tracks of the person who set this up. Fufu. The voice chuckled and asked, "Are you looking for me?" Suzimo was expressionless, but his heart was in turmoil. He still could not find him. He had no idea where to start. From the beginning to the end, the person who had set this up had been holding the initiative, leading him and everyone else by the nose. At this moment, Suzimo felt like he was being watched. Suzimo suddenly turned around and looked over. With one look, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle. On the eastern wall of the ancient temple, the 9 zhang tall Vajra protector walked down from the wall. His body was white, and he was wearing armor. He held a pipa in his hand, and his eyes were glaring at Suzimo. Suzimo sucked in a breath of cold air. One of the 4 great Vajras had actually come back to life. This was definitely not an illusion. Suzimo suddenly remembered something. From the moment he entered the ancient temple, he had a feeling that he was being watched, but he could not find the source. Now that he thought about it, the feeling of being watched came from this guardian Vajra. Clang, clang. Suddenly, the Vajra protector hugged the pipa and plucked the strings with his fingertips. The sound of metal clashing could be heard and was extremely ear-piercing, containing a murderous intent. Frowning, Suzimo felt a piercing pain in his ears and could not help but grunt. The dozens of cultivators that were fighting near the Vajra protector suddenly stopped in their tracks with stiff expressions. Immediately after, streaks of blood appeared on the faces and bodies of the dozens of cultivators before they exploded into clouds of blood mist. Even with Suzimo's physique, he could not withstand the sound of the pipa. It was obvious what would happen to the other cultivators. All of a sudden, Suzimo sensed something and looked to the other side. On the southern wall, a massive figure that was 90 zhang tall walked down from the wall with a terrifying aura. It was the Growth Vajra. The figure was green in color and was clad in armor. Wielding a treasure sword, it had a murderous aura. The treasure sword slashed forward. The 100-odd cultivators in front of him were severed at the waist, and there were even conjoint body mighty figures among them. Endless blood spewed out in a horrifying manner. What was even more frightening was that those cultivators were still in the illusion and could not break free even until their deaths. Roar! Right then, a loud dragon roar sounded from the west. Suzimo looked in the direction of the voice. The wide-eyed Vajra protector on the western wall had already come to life as well. The wide-eyed Vajra protector was red in color and wore armor. A scarlet divine dragon coiled around its thick arms as it opened its bloody mouth and let out a deafening roar. The scarlet dragon flew out and opened its mouth, devouring the dozens of cultivators in front of it instantly. Not even a drop of blood was spilled. Dozens of Dharma Daojun were devoured alive. The number of cultivators in the Grand Primordium ancient temple decreased. Suzimo turned around once more and looked at the northern wall. True enough. The all-knowing Vajra on the northern wall had already walked over as well. The all-knowing Vajra protector was 90 feet tall and was green in color. It was also clad in armor and wielded a treasure umbrella that seemed like it could blot out the heavens. The all-knowing Vajra protector released his grip and the treasure umbrella spun out. Suddenly, the 100-odd cultivators enveloped by the treasure umbrella felt a powerful suction force and were knocked towards the umbrella. It was as though there was an endless abyss beneath the treasure umbrella that devoured the 100-odd cultivators without leaving any corpses behind. The 4 guardian Vajras had all come to life. To be precise, right from the beginning, the 4 guardian Vajras were not inanimate objects or carvings drawn on the wall. The four guardian Vajras killed hundreds of cultivators the moment they attacked. In the entire hall, there were less than 500 cultivators left alive. The four guardian Vajras were way too terrifying. Even with Su Zimo's cultivation, he felt suffocated against the might of the four guardian Vajras. The mastermind behind this was the four guardian Vajras before him? Something was wrong. There must be something wrong. The four guardian Vajras were legends of the Buddhist monasteries. Even if they truly existed, they should be in the upper world and definitely not on Tianhuang mainland. Otherwise, they would not be legends. There would definitely be clear records of them in the ancient books of the Buddhist monasteries of Tianhuang mainland. In other words, the four guardian Vajras before him were definitely not the legendary four guardian Vajras of the Buddhist monasteries. However, Su Zimo was certain that everything he saw was not an illusion. Just now, the massacre of the four guardian Vajras was real as well. The four guardian Vajras did not take another step forward and glared at Su Zimo with a mocking look in their eyes. They wanted to see if Su Zimo could guess the final answer. All of a sudden, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. This thought was so terrifying that it had only flashed through his mind, yet he felt his blood run cold and his hair stand on end. However, he was increasingly certain that there was a high chance that his guess was the truth. The four guardian Vajras before him were indeed not the legendary four guardian Vajras of the Buddhist monasteries. That was because the four guardian Vajras before him were 90 feet tall supreme Dharma characteristics. Chapter 1268. Supreme Dharma Characteristic, Su Zimo said slowly, "Fellow Taoists, the four of you are truly capable." Fufu. That voice suddenly sounded. It was a laugh that seemed to carry a hint of mockery. In Su Zimo's gaze, a figure walked out slowly from the darkness ahead. There was only one figure. There was no one else. Su Zimo suddenly thought of a possibility. "You guessed wrong. There are no four fellow Taoists, I'm the only one," the figure said slowly. Pissed? Su Zimo was shocked and a look of shock flashed through his eyes. When he saw the four supreme Dharma characteristics, his first reaction was that the four Dharma characteristic monster incarnates had joined forces to set up a trap in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. However, he had not expected that the four supreme Dharma characteristics were all cultivated by a single person. One person and four Dharma characteristics. Up till this point of his cultivation, how many opportunities and fortuitous encounters had Su Zimo obtained? There were probably not many people who could compare to the opportunities he had in the Tao inheritance ground. However, he had only cultivated 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. However, the figure before him had condensed 4 Dharma characteristics. Furthermore, all of them were supreme Dharma characteristics. That was way too terrifying. Notwithstanding the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics, the Dharma Daojun had set up a trap and lured more than 5,000 cultivators into the Grand Primordium ancient temple. What sort of methods were those that could cause conjoint body mighty figures to fall deep into it with a single illusion? The likes of Di'in and Dao Lord Hatred were far inferior compared to this person before him. Even Qinglian's true body could not compare to this person before him. Su Zimo believed that given his talent and comprehension of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Daos, Qinglian's true body would be able to cultivate all 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics to the level of a 90 feet supreme in the end. Even so, that was only 3. It was still 1 short of the 4 of the person who set up the trap. Of course, that did not mean that Su Zimo could not compare to this person. If the dragon's true bodies were included, Su Zimo would definitely be able to fight against this person. If Wu Dao's true body was fully formed, then this person would be no match for him. Even so, knowing that the 4 cosmic characteristics were formed by a single person was already shocking enough. This generation was truly filled with paragons and monster incarnates. Even Dao lords with 4 supreme Dharma characteristics had appeared. It was impossible for such a monster to be a nobody. Why had he never heard of this person before? Just as Su Zimo was pondering, the figure had already arrived in front of him and revealed its true appearance. To Su Zimo's surprise, this was not a monk. The person was dressed in a grayish-white robe. His long hair draped over his shoulders and covered most of his face, only revealing one eye. This eye was clear, bright, gentle, and seemed to contain boundless wisdom. When one exchanged glances with that eye, it was as though all the panic, fear, uneasiness would vanish and one's mind would calm down. If one had not witnessed it with their own eyes, it would be difficult to imagine that a cultivator with such pure eyes would be so ruthless and cold-blooded. There seemed to be a thin scar on the person's glabella. However, the scar was covered by his long hair and could not be seen clearly. While Su Zimo was sizing up the white-robed man, the latter was also sizing up Su Zimo. The white-robed man seemed to have thought of something and frowned slightly with a reminiscing expression. A moment later, the white-robed man was shocked and looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. "It's you?" Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Although it was only 2 words, the information revealed by these 2 words was too great. From the tone of the white-robed man, it was clear that he had seen him before. However, no matter how hard Su Zimo tried, he could not remember where he had seen this person before. That person's appearance was not outstanding. However, Su Zimo believed that he would definitely not forget someone with such clear and pure eyes if he were to catch a glimpse of that person. "I truly didn't expect this." The white-robed man shook his head gently and lamented. "You've seen me before?" Su Zimo suddenly asked. The white-robed man smiled meaningfully and did not deny it. "We've met once." Met once. Su Zimo's mind spun rapidly as countless clues appeared. The answer was about to surface. As long as he connected the clues with the fragments, it would be the final answer. Met once, Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, more than 100 years ago, blood. Suddenly, Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he glared at the white-robed man before him and said word by word, "So, it's you, Blood Demon Tao Lord." The white-robed man was stunned. Su Zimo said slowly, "More than 100 years ago, in the underground fiend palace of the North region, the skeleton that was suppressed in the coffin that was resurrected was you." At that moment, although Su Zimo still had many questions in his heart, he had an explanation for many of them. Back then, Su Zimo was still at Foundation Establishment Realm. Under Demoness G's invitation, he ventured deep underground to search for a legacy of the fiend sections. To think that he would encounter immense danger and nearly lose his life. At that time, the skeleton in the ancient coffin was resurrected and sucked the flesh of cultivators. Su Zimo had to make use of the divine phoenix bone to severely injure it. Eventually, the ground collapsed and buried everything. As for Su Zimo and Demoness G, they hid in the stone coffin and avoided the calamity. It was in that stone coffin that Su Zimo obtained the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra and a Mingwang prayer beads. Later on, when he heard about the legend of the Blood Demon Tao Lord from Monk Yuan Bay, he realized that there was a high chance that the one suppressed in the stone coffin was the Blood Demon Tao Lord. Of course, there were many details that could not be explained. For example, who was the one who suppressed the Blood Demon Tao Lord in the stone coffin? Why was there a Mingwang prayer beads left in the stone coffin? If the Blood Demon Tao Lord knew about the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, why did he carve it on the coffin lid? Could it be that he wanted to pass down the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra? The white-robed man did not refute and merely looked at Su Zimo indifferently. Su Zimo was even more certain in his heart as he replied coldly, "Your so-called chance encounter was in the underground fiend palace. However, you were merely a skeleton back then. Compared to now, the difference is truly too great." "You've changed quite a bit as well," the white-robed man said. "Back then, you were merely a Foundation Establishment cultivator. I didn't recognize you right away when you grew to this extent after more than 100 years." The white-robed man's words were equivalent to indirectly acknowledging Su Zimo's guess. Su Zimo looked at the corpses strewn all over the hall and sighed internally. "You spent so much effort to set up this trap so that you can use the fresh blood of these cultivators to cultivate the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra and recover your cultivation." Back when he heard that the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple descended on Tianhuang mainland for the first time more than 100 years ago, he vaguely felt that something was amiss. The timing was somewhat coincidental. However, he did not think too much about it. From the looks of it, after the blood demon Tao Lord was born, he made use of the Grand Primordium ancient temple to set up such a trap in order to recover his cultivation rapidly. All these years, countless cultivators would die each time the Grand Primordium ancient temple descended. Their fresh blood would become the source of the blood demon Tao Lord's cultivation. Chapter 1269. The sounds of fighting and killing in the surroundings had gradually subsided. Right now, there were less than 200 cultivators left in the hall. Even though the remaining people had exhausted their dermic powers, they were still fighting for the treasures with bloodshot eyes and bleeding heads as though they had gone mad. Right from the beginning, the white-robed man did not attack much. What he wanted to do was to release some plausible news and lure those cultivators into the Grand Primordium ancient temple. He would release an illusion and bury the 5,000-odd cultivators here. The white-robed man was only at the Dharma characteristic realm. He had heard Monk Yuan Bei mention some legends about the blood demon Tao Lord. However, Su Zimo only felt that terror when he truly faced this former expert. It was not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of temperament, intelligence, strategy, and aura. There was also an indescribable pressure. When Su Zimo realized that the white-robed man before him was the blood demon Tao Lord, there was an explanation for the entire matter. Of course, there were still some things that he could not figure out. What's with this Grand Primordium ancient temple? Although there are no treasures inside, this ancient temple is real. How can you move such a massive ancient temple around continuously? Su Zimo asked. According to the rumors outside, the first time the Grand Primordium ancient temple descended was in the southern region of Tianhuang mainland. Thereafter, every once in a while, the ancient temple would descend in a place and attract many cultivators to search for treasures. The ancient temple was majestic and ancient, dozens of times larger than the capital of Great Zhou. It was hard for Su Zimo to imagine how the white-robed man was able to move such a massive object around continuously. Since you're so smart, why don't you make a guess? The white-robed man seemed to admire Su Zimo as well and did not answer immediately, asking calmly. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and his eyes lit up as he blurted out, "This Grand Primordium ancient temple is your dermic weapon." That was the only possibility that could explain his doubts just now. That was the only possibility that could explain why the white-robed man could control the 4 stone doors of the ancient temple and trap everyone here. Not bad. The white-robed man nodded and laughed mockingly. "This is my natal ritual artifact. How can these people be a match for me after entering my natal ritual artifact?" An ancient ruin that was constantly on the move was a little strange to begin with. However, no one would have thought that this so-called ancient ruin was actually a cultivator's destiny dermic weapon. Su Zimo asked again, "When did you release your illusion?" After a pause, Su Zimo revealed a look of reminiscence and said, "It was the moment when the row of green lamps lit up after the stone door fell, right?" Su Zimo had a deep impression of that scene. The stone door suddenly fell, causing everyone in the hall to become somewhat alarmed. At this moment, the green lamp was lit, and the light was flickering. The 4 guardian Vajras on the wall seemed to have come alive. Many of the cultivators were frightened. At that instant, the minds of the cultivators shuddered, revealing their weaknesses. Not bad. The white-robed man did not hide anything and nodded. Thereafter, the white-robed man smiled gently. "These cultivators are deeply trapped in illusions and can't extricate themselves. My illusion is only a trigger. The true source lies in the hearts of each of you." The white-robed man extended his slender and fair finger and pointed at Su Zimo's chest through the air. Su Zimo frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. As though he was enlightened, he said, "The appearance comes from the heart." "That's right." The white-robed man nodded. "The treasures that you're looking at are all caused by the desires in your hearts." That also explained why all the cultivators were able to find the treasures they wanted in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. This was because these so-called treasures were nothing more than the images that were born in the hearts of every cultivator. That was also the reason why this illusion technique was terrifying. There was only a single way to break free from the illusion. It was to suppress the obsession in one's heart temporarily. If one had no desires in their heart, they would naturally have no appearance and would be able to break free from the illusion. Su Zimo realized that something was amiss as well. He endured the reluctance in his heart and threw out the 2 Buddha beads, obtaining true freedom from then on. Although the process seemed simple, it was actually soul-stirring. If he could not break free from the obsession in his heart, Su Zimo would be like the cultivators in the hall, still immersed in his illusions and fighting. Even if his combat strength was heaven-defying and he killed everyone, so what? His outcome would still be unavoidable. He would be killed mercilessly by the white-robed man for no reason. Su Zimo said, "Rumor has it that the blood demon Dao Lord is extremely bloodthirsty and cold-blooded. I've finally witnessed it today." Fu! The white-robed man laughed and an incomprehensible emotion flashed through his eyes. That's considered bloodthirsty? For you to be able to cultivate to this realm, there must be countless lives in your hands, right? Su Zimo was silent. The cultivation world was incomparably cruel. All of these so-called paragons and monster incarnates had to step on countless corpses to reach where they were today. The white-robed man said, "These people are blinded by greed and are hopeless. The greater the greed in their hearts, the deeper they sink. So what if such people die? What's there to pity? Furthermore, I didn't kill many people. They were the ones killing each other." The white-robed man had a mocking expression and smiled indifferently. To be able to become the blood demon Dao Lord and create a cultivation technique like the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, he naturally had his own views that others could not change. Furthermore, this is not a dead end. The white-robed man continued, "I've left 2 chances for survival in this situation. If these cultivators weren't greedy, they naturally wouldn't have come to this grand primordium ancient temple and wouldn't have experienced this calamity. This is a chance for survival. Even if they enter the ancient temple, as long as any of these cultivators can let go of their obsessions and break free from the illusion, I'll spare their lives and send them out of the ancient temple. This is the second chance for survival. For those who can let go of their obsessions, I'll even give them opportunities, cultivation techniques, secret skills, elixirs or treasures." For more than 100 years, some of the cultivators who entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple survived. So, that was the reason why the surviving cultivators obtained quite a bit of opportunities after leaving the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Su Zimo said indifferently, "The reason why you let these cultivators go and even gave them opportunities is because these cultivators can attract more people. If every cultivator who entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple died inside, who would dare to explore? Only someone like the white-robed man, who intentionally let some cultivators go and allowed them to obtain some opportunities, would be able to attract more cultivators." "You're indeed smart," the white-robed man smiled. Su Zimo raised his brow and suddenly said, "According to you, you'll let me live even if I break free from the illusion?" The smile in the white-robed man's eyes deepened as he shook his head slowly. "You can't." Chapter 1270. The white-robed man said those words with a smile. In fact, Su Zimo could not sense any killing intent from the white-robed man's tone. It was as though an esteemed monk was speaking gently to him. However, Su Zimo knew very well that the white-robed man would definitely not let him off. It was not only because he had severely injured the white-robed man more than 100 years ago and there was already a feud between the 2 of them. More than that, it was because he knew of the white-robed man's identity and the secret of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. There was no way the white-robed man would let him leave alive. There was no suspense if the 2 of them were to fight. Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo had just fought a huge battle and his 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics had already dissipated, it would be difficult for him to condense them again within a short period of time. To be fair, even if he was in his peak condition, he would not be a match for the white-robed man. That was a total of 4 supreme dharma characteristics. Back then, Dao Lord Hatred forced Qinglian's true body to its limits with a single supreme dharma characteristic. If all 4 supreme dharma characteristics were to attack at the same time, Qinglian's true body might not even be able to withstand a single move. Of course, Su Zimo would not allow himself to be captured without a fight. He kept asking questions. On the one hand, he truly wanted to resolve the doubts in his heart. On the other hand, he was stalling for time and secretly recovering his stamina, nourishing his essence spirit and preparing for his final counterattack. He only had a single chance to attack. If the white-robed man reacted and the four guardian Vajras attacked at the same time, Qinglian's true body would not be able to escape the fate of death. The white-robed man's eyes were clear as he looked at Su Zimo with a faint smile. That eye was filled with endless wisdom, as though it could see through all the secrets of Su Zimo and see through Su Zimo's plans long ago. Perhaps the reason why the white-robed man did not interfere was because he did not care at all. It was the gaze of a cat looking at a mouse. It was a little mocking and playful. In the eyes of the white-robed man, Su Zimo was perhaps a smart mouse that could not break free from his control no matter what. Su Zimo looked at the four guardian Vajras and sighed. I didn't expect the great blood demon Tao Lord to have such high attainments in Buddhism. Even in the ancient era, there was probably no Buddhist disciple who could condense 4 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and cultivate all of them to the level of supreme Dharma characteristics, let alone the Buddhist cultivators of the current era. But the more it was like this, the more it proved how terrifying the white-robed man was. He created the world-shaking blood refinement fiend sutra. Some people commented that even the ancient emperors couldn't compare to him in terms of bloodline attainments. However, this devil who killed without batting an eyelid also had such terrifying attainments in Buddhism. The Buddha and the devil merged perfectly on the body of this white-robed man, forming a unique temperament. What is a devil? What is a Buddha? The white-robed man seemed to be touched by Su Zimo's words. He faintly said, demons can become Buddhas, and Buddhas can become demons. What is the difference between the two? Su Zimo's mind was tense the entire time. The moment the white-robed man's mind stirred, Su Zimo sensed it. An opportunity. Kill. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and released a sound domain's secret skill. That was only the first move. His killing move was all at the back. The two of them were extremely close, less than 10 feet apart. At this distance, the Dharma Daojun who had a weak physique could be killed by the thunderous sound if he was caught off guard. However, Thunderclap Kill did not affect the white-robed man at all. The white-robed man was still looking at Su Zimo calmly with a hint of mockery in his eyes and a fake smile. Not good. Su Zimo's heart sank. Could this opportunity be an opening that the white-robed man purposely revealed? Even so, Su Zimo could not be bothered anymore. The arrow was already knocked and had to be released. Swoosh, swoosh. A green glow burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella. His creation lotus platform hovered above his head. However, in reality, the 54 Qinglian seeds were hidden in his consciousness the entire time, ready to unleash a fatal attack at any moment. The moment the 54 Qinglian seeds left his consciousness, they condensed into a shimmering green sword instantly. Qinglian's sword arrived instantly and slashed towards the white-robed man's head. This was a killing technique that targeted the essence spirit. Even some conjoint body mighty figures could not withstand a single slash from Qinglian's sword. Su Zimo knew very well that Qinglian's true body was definitely not a match for the white-robed man in a head-on fight. Furthermore, he could not even conjure a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic right now. He would only have a chance of survival if he fought with his essence spirit against the white-robed man. Furthermore, the white-robed man could not be distracted during the fight between essence spirits, and the 4 guardian Vajras would become mere decorations. If he could kill the white-robed man's essence spirit, the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics would naturally collapse without a fight. Of course, if he failed, everything would be over. Sensing the sharpness of Qinglian's sword, the pupils of the white-robed man constricted slightly. Even so, there was no hint of panic on his face. It was as though there was no one in this world that could make him panic. The white-robed man did not move at all with a calm expression. He merely watched calmly as Qinglian's sword slashed over and entered his glabella. Su Zimo's eyes widened as he watched everything in disbelief. It worked? Even the essence spirit of a conjoint body mighty figure could not defend against the sharpness of Qinglian's sword when it pierced into his consciousness. After a brief pause, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. The life aura of the white-robed man was not affected at all, and his eyes were still clear and bright. He did not look like his essence spirit was destroyed at all. On the contrary, Su Zimo could not sense Qinglian's sword after it entered the white-robed man's glabella. What sort of method was that? Su Zimo was shocked. He was extremely certain that the white-robed man had not used any essence spirit secret skills or essence spirit dermic weapons right from the beginning. However, when Qinglian's sword entered his consciousness, it was devoured without a trace like a stone ox entering the sea. All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation spread out from the glabella of the white-robed man. The slender blood scar between the gaps of his black hair on his glabella seemed to have turned even clearer and brighter, as though a blood-colored eye was about to open. Immediately after, 54 Qinglian seeds fell from the glabella of the white-robed man without any luster. The entire process was extremely short. In fact, Su Zimo did not even know what method the white-robed man used to neutralize his Qinglian sword. However, at that moment he could not care less. Spirit Vanquishing Whip. Su Zimo growled and channeled his essence spirit once more, releasing a second essence spirit secret skill. He could not give the white-robed man any chance. Otherwise, the white-robed man would not have any chance if the 4 guardian Vajras surrounded him with a single thought. Su Zimo reached out and pulled out a long whip that was coiled with lightning from his glabella. It was bedazzling and emitted a destructive aura. Crackle! Su Zimo swung the spirit vanquishing whip and whipped it towards the white-robed man. He did not believe that the white-robed man could still withstand his second essence spirit secret skill without moving. Chapter 1271. Thunder Emperor's Secret Skill. The white-robed man's eyes lit up and he blurted out the origin of the spirit vanquishing whip. This time round he did not get careless and channeled his mental cultivation technique as well, chanting a few dermic arts to conjure essence spirit secret skills. Those dermic arts sounded familiar to Su Zimo. Before long, he realized that it was the essence spirit secret skill of the blood refinement fiend Sutra, blood drop art. A drop of scarlet blood floated out of the white-robed man's consciousness and collided with the spirit vanquishing whip with a terrifying evil power. Buzz! Buzz! Almost instantly, the lightning on the spirit vanquishing whip was suppressed by the drop of blood. Normally speaking, the power of thunder was the most effective against evil. However, the power of evil was so strong that even thunder could not suppress it. Seeing that the spirit vanquishing whip was about to dissipate, Su Zimo channeled his mental cultivation technique once more and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a third essence spirit secret skill. Rulai Dermic Seal. A golden swastika symbol burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella. It was sacred and flawless, as though it possessed immense power that could suppress all living beings. The swastika symbol flew towards the white-robed man slowly. After releasing that essence spirit secret skill, Su Zimo's body swayed and his face turned incomparably pale. Initially, he had already fought several battles with the cultivators in the hall and expended a lot of dermic powers and essence spirit. Right now, forcefully channeling 3 essence spirit secret skills was already his limit. Su Zimo grit his teeth and endured the tearing pain from his essence spirit. He channeled the creation lotus platform and struck towards the white-robed man's head. The two of them were extremely close and the creation lotus platform arrived almost instantly. It was even faster than the Rulai Dermic Seal. The white-robed man did not use any weapons. Looking at the creation lotus platform that was crashing towards him, he simply reached out his fair hand and grabbed the creation lotus platform without moving it at all. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. He had just used the creation lotus platform to shatter the head of Chaos Essence Sect's mighty figure, Elder Lei Lai. But now, the white-robed man was using his body to grab the creation lotus platform. What sort of physique and power was that? There were no flaws in the white-robed man's body. Drip, A stream of blood flowed from the palm of the white-robed man and fell to the ground. The white-robed man was still injured after receiving the lotus platform of good fortune with his bare hands. Of course, this was only a flesh wound. In the blink of an eye, the wound on the white-robed man's palm had already healed. A sacred relic of Buddhism. The white-robed man gazed at the jade-green lotus platform in his palm as a wisp of fondness flashed through his eyes. He said, "With your cultivation and combat strength, you must be a peerless monster amongst the disciples of the Buddhist sect. I really can't bear to kill you. What a pity. You shouldn't have come to this grand primordium ancient temple. You shouldn't have been so greedy." The white-robed man sighed gently and held the creation lotus platform in his palm. Looking at the incoming Rulai Dermic seal, he channeled his mental cultivation and released an essence spirit secret skill as well. Su Zimo couldn't help but widen his eyes. A beam of golden light burst forth from the glabella of the white-robed man as well. It was dazzling as an even larger, more sacred and more resplendent swastika symbol descended. Tathagata Dharma Mudra. The white-robed man knew the Rulai Dermic seal as well. Furthermore, the fact that he could conjure 4 supreme Dharma characteristics meant that his essence spirit was definitely stronger than Su Zimo's. After he released the Rulai Dermic seal, its power was clearly even more terrifying. Boom! The 2 Rulai Dermic seals collided heavily. The entire hall seemed to have gone silent. Some of the cultivators not far away from the 2 of them shuddered, and their gazes dimmed. Their life force drained rapidly and they collapsed. Within their consciousnesses, their essence spirits had already shattered. Even though the 2 Rulai Dermic seals collided, many cultivators could not withstand the spirit consciousness fluctuations that spread out. There was a brief pause. The swastika symbol formed by Su Zimo began to shatter. Cracks appeared on the swastika symbol formed by the white-robed man as well. However, it was clearly stronger than Su Zimo's. Before long, it suppressed Su Zimo's swastika symbol and collided with Su Zimo. It was a crushing defeat. Even though Su Zimo released 3 essence spirit secret skills consecutively, they were all blocked by the white-robed man. Furthermore, the white-robed man's essence spirit secret skills formed an extremely threatening counterattack. Su Zimo's essence spirit was already at its limits. At that moment, he felt a sharp pain and could no longer conjure any essence spirit secret skills. Even so, Su Zimo did not give up. He condensed a wisp of spirit consciousness and stimulated the Mingwang prayer beads on his left wrist repeatedly, wanting to awaken the essence spirit dermic weapon. After all, he had worn that dermic weapon for many years and was connected to his mind and bloodline. Sensing the danger Su Zimo was in, the Mingwang prayer beads burst forth with a blazing golden light and formed a golden barrier around Su Zimo. Mysterious runes were etched on the barrier and every single one of them contained a mysterious might. Boom! The shattered Rulai Dermic seal collided against the golden barrier formed by the Mingwang prayer beads and shattered. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness was exhausted and the barrier did not last long either. It dimmed rapidly and vanished without a trace. He had lost. Su Zimo did not have any dermic powers in his body and his essence spirit was dried up. He was completely exhausted and could not even release the simplest dermic arts. As for the white-robed man, he only needed to use a single supreme dharma characteristic to kill Su Zimo. Su Zimo hunched his body slightly and panted heavily. Although he was indignant that Qinglian's true body had died here, it was nothing much. He still had the true bodies of the dragons and Wu Dao. One day, he would definitely return and seek revenge on the blood demon Dao Lord. Thoughts flashed through Su Zimo's mind one after another. His head even started to feel a little dizzy. However, the white-robed man did not attack the entire time. After an unknown period of time, Su Zimo finally realized that something was amiss and raised his head instinctively. Unknowingly, the white-robed man had already arrived before him. Suddenly, the white-robed man reached out and grabbed Su Zimo's left arm. Su Zimo wanted to dodge and resist. However, he did not have any strength and could only allow the white-robed man to grab his left arm. Shing! The white-robed man exerted his strength slightly and the sleeve of Su Zimo's left arm shattered instantly. The white-robed man's gaze landed on Su Zimo's left wrist. He stared at the string of Mingwang prayer beads and remained silent for a long time with a conflicted expression. However, Su Zimo was in a daze and did not notice it. Those are the Mingwang prayer beads. After a long time, the white-robed man finally spoke slowly. Su Zimo no longer had any strength. He sneered and could not be bothered to reply. 40,000 years ago, the Mingwang prayer beads were worn by monk Daming. The blood demon Dao Lord and monk Daming were old enemies. There was no way he would not recognize this treasure of the Buddhist monasteries after their battle. How did you get your hands on this treasure? The white-robed man asked. Are you the titular disciple of this generation of Daming monastery? Su Zimo lamented internally. The blood demon Dao Lord has been suppressed for tens of thousands of years and doesn't know that the world of Tianhuang mainland has changed. Even Daming Monastery has vanished. Chapter 1272. Daming Monastery is gone. Su Zimo said indifferently. Gone. The white-robed man's eyes shone with a blinding light and his tone was filled with disbelief. It was gone 10,000 years ago. Knowing that he was going to die, Su Zimo did not hide anything. Right now, I'm the only one left of Daming Monastery. You found the right person to seek revenge on. Of course, there was still Monk Yuan Bei at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. However, Monk Yuan Bei's lifespan was almost up and Su Zimo did not want to cause him any more trouble. In Su Zimo's opinion, the most likely reason why the blood demon Dao Lord was suppressed by monk Daming for tens of thousands of years was because he had an endless hatred for the latter. Because of the relationship between Daming Monastery and monk Daming, it was normal for the blood demon Dao Lord to harbor resentment towards Daming Monastery. Unfortunately, 40,000 years had passed and the world had changed. The blood demon Dao Lord's old friends were no longer around. Even the Daming temple had been destroyed. The white-robed man had a complicated expression and remained silent. You're the only one left of Daming Monastery. After a long time, the white-robed man spoke slowly with a lamenting tone. His grip on Su Zimo's arm gradually loosened as well. His eyes looked into the distance with a hint of vicissitudes of time. Su Zimo waited for a long time but could not help but frown when the white-robed man did not attack him. In this short period of time, he had also recovered some stamina and looked up. At that moment, the white-robed man stood opposite him and looked into the distant void in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking about. You? Su Zimo was about to ask when the white-robed man turned and looked at him once more. The white-robed man's eyes were still clear and bright, containing supreme wisdom. However, for some reason, Su Zimo felt that the white-robed man's gaze was different from before. What do you want from this grand primordium ancient temple? The white-robed man suddenly asked. 9 transformations soul return elixir and 2 Buddha beads. Su Zimo did not hide anything. He had already obtained the 9 transformations soul return elixir. Unfortunately, he could not escape from this place. But who would have thought that in this ancient temple, there was actually a peerless devil who had caused chaos in the entire cultivation world 40,000 years ago? Actually, the news that I released wasn't entirely false. Suddenly, the white-robed man said, there are indeed 2 Buddha beads in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. As soon as he finished speaking, the white-robed man flipped his palm. In his palm, there were 2 Buddhist beads. Su Zimo looked at the beads with rapt attention. The 2 Buddha beads were made of soul-nurturing wood and were about the size of a longan fruit. There was a seal engraved on the beads, which was exactly the same as the aura of the Mingwang prayer beads. This, Su Zimo was bewildered. On one hand, his soul core had dried up, so it was already extremely difficult for him to distinguish if these 2 Buddhist beads were real or fake, and if it was some sort of trick of the white-robed man. On the other hand, even if the 2 Buddha beads were real, he did not know what the white-robed man's intentions were. The white-robed man did not answer and casually removed the Mingwang prayer beads from Su Zimo's left wrist. The white-robed man strung the 2 Buddha beads in his palm together and injected dermic powers. The 6 Buddha beads shone brightly with a sacred and flawless halo. This treasure of Daming Monastery was scattered and lost for 40,000 years. Now it was finally gathered together. The white-robed man rubbed the 6 Buddha beads gently with his fingers and remained silent for a long time. Su Zimo revealed a hint of reluctance as well. The Mingwang prayer beads were finally restored. Unfortunately, they were going to fall into the hands of someone else. "You can leave." At that instant, the white-robed man suddenly spoke. Su Zimo did not hear clearly. Or rather, he could not believe what he had heard. "You've already obtained the treasure you wanted in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. It's time to leave," the white-robed man said indifferently. This time round, Su Zimo heard it clearly. However, he could not figure it out. How could the white-robed man let him off? Could it be that the blood demon Tao Lord was moved by a string of Mingwang prayer beads? Or was there more to this than met the eye? At that moment, Su Zimo was exhausted and mentally weak. His mind was in a mess and he could not figure out the relationship between the two. The next moment, the white-robed man did something that shocked Su Zimo even more. "Take it." The white-robed man returned the complete Mingwang prayer beads to Su Zimo. Su Zimo was stunned. Not only did the white-robed man let him go, he even gave him the complete Mingwang prayer beads? "Aren't you afraid that I'll look for you again?" Su Zimo said, "Given my potential, you might not be a match for me if I cultivate to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm." If the two of them were at the same cultivation realm, although Su Zimo had one less heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the outcome of a true fight would be unpredictable. "All right, I'll wait for you," the white-robed man said. "I'm also looking forward to you defeating me." There seemed to be a hidden meaning behind the white-robed man's words. However, Su Zimo could not figure it out. Frowning, Su Zimo asked again, "I already know the secret of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. If I leave, I'm afraid no one will fall for your trap using the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple." "There's no need for that anymore," the white-robed man said indifferently. "After today, the blood in this hall is enough for me to advance to the conjoint body realm. The cultivators attracted by the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple are no longer enough to satisfy my appetite. I'll find another way." Although the tone of the white-robed man was calm, it was filled with a strong bloodthirsty and murderous intent. He did not hide his ambitions at all. Once he entered the conjoint body realm, his combat strength and methods would be even more terrifying. At that time, another bloodbath would ensue in Tianhuang mainland. The white-robed man's gaze flickered as he channeled his spirit consciousness, and the stone door on the east side of the ancient temple rose slowly. At that moment, the sun had just risen. A warm ray of sunlight shone into the hall, dispelling some of the sinister blood stench in the hall. Su Zimo also regained some warmth. Immediately after, Su Zimo felt a tremendous force pushing him out of the ancient temple. In the blink of an eye, he was already outside the ancient temple. The white-robed man had really let him go and even gave him the complete Mingwang prayer beads. Rumble. Boom. The stone door descended slowly. Su Zimo turned around instinctively. The figure had already turned blurry and disappeared into the depths of the ancient temple. As the stone door descended, it could no longer be seen. Under Su Zimo's gaze, the massive Grand Primordium Ancient Temple shrank into a fist-sized spot of light in the blink of an eye and sped into the distance, disappearing into the horizon before long. It was over. Standing in midair, Su Zimo breathed in the fresh air around him and recalled everything that happened in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. He still felt that it was unreal and fell into a daze. It was as though everything was just a dream. He glanced at his palm. The complete Mingwang prayer beads lay there quietly. The 6 Buddha beads were connected together and emitted a sacred glow. Chapter 1273. Su Zimo looked around. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple had already left Jade Toad Ridge with them. Su Zimo took out some elixirs to recover his essence spirit from his storage bag and consumed them before resting for a moment. Thereafter, he grabbed a random mystic mist eagle from the surrounding forest and used it as his leg strength to head towards the bamboo forest where Yen Beichen lived in seclusion. That way, he could recuperate and recover his strength while traveling. The mystic mist eagle tore through the clouds at an extremely fast speed and flew extremely steadily. Su Zimo sat on the back of the mystic mist eagle and recuperated while recalling his bizarre experience. The trip to the Grand Primordium ancient temple this time round was a calamity for most cultivators. Of the more than 5,000 cultivators that entered, less than 10 would have made it out alive. However, for Su Zimo, it was a turnaround and he obtained an unimaginable opportunity. Until now, he still could not understand why the Blood Demon Tao Lord would suddenly change his mind and let him go. Furthermore, he returned the complete Mingwang prayer beads to him. The Mingwang prayer beads were of great significance to Su Zimo. It had an extremely obvious increase in his combat strength as well. That was because the 2 lost Buddha beads contained the 2 strongest dermic seals of the Daming dermic seal, the Great Vajra Wheel seal and the Great Mount Meru seal. According to Monk Yuan Bei, those 2 dermic seals were the strongest and were extremely ferocious. Furthermore, the combination of the 6 dermic seals would produce an even stronger dermic art. Su Zimo rubbed the Mingwang prayer beads gently and his heart skipped a beat as he recalled the way the white-robed man looked at the Mingwang prayer beads. The change in the white-robed man's attitude towards him seemed to be after he saw the Mingwang prayer beads as well. What's the relationship between the Blood Demon Tao Lord and the Mingwang prayer beads? Su Zimo murmured, "It's more likely that Monk Daming is related to the Mingwang prayer beads." Suddenly, Su Zimo's voice came to an abrupt halt. His eyes widened as he thought of an extremely terrifying and absurd possibility. Could it be that the white-robed man he saw was not the Blood Demon Tao Lord, but Monk Daming? This speculation was too shocking. However, now that Su Zimo had recovered his energy, his thoughts were gradually becoming clearer. When he recalled what had happened in the hall, he couldn't help but think in this direction. The white-robed man was able to cultivate 4 Buddhist Dharma idols, the 4 guardian Vajras. Furthermore, the reason why his attainments in Buddhism were so terrifying might be because the white-robed man was Monk Daming. In fact, there were many traces of Buddhism on the white-robed man. Su Zimo's first impression was that the white-robed man was the Blood Demon Tao Lord. The main reason was that the white-robed man knew the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. However, this did not prove that the white-robed man was the Blood Demon Tao Lord. That was because Su Zimo knew it as well. He had not been trapped in the stone coffin for long before he understood the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. It was only normal for the white-robed man to learn the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra after being trapped in the stone coffin for 40,000 years. More importantly, Su Zimo recalled something. The white-robed man admitted that he had met Su Zimo once. In fact, he even admitted that he was the skeleton that revived from the underground fiend palace more than 100 years ago. However, right from the beginning, the white-robed man had never admitted that he was the Blood Demon Tao Lord. The white-robed man once said, "Fiends can become Buddhas and Buddhas can become fiends. There's no difference between the two." Now that he thought about it, he seemed to have said that from the bottom of his heart. That was the only explanation that made sense. Why did the white-robed man's attitude change when he heard that Su Zimo was the successor of Daming Monastery? He even took out his 2 Buddha beads and returned the complete set of Mingwang prayer beads to Su Zimo. Even if Monk Daming had turned into a fiend, he had an unforgettable feeling towards Daming Monastery. For more than 100 years, the Grand Primordium ancient temple had appeared many times in Tianhuang mainland. However, it had never been to the north region. It was most likely because it wanted to avoid Daming Monastery. However, the white-robed man did not know that Daming Monastery was already a thing of the past. Furthermore, given Monk Daming's seniority, there was a high chance that he knew Monk Yuan Bei. That was perhaps the only old friend that he knew. Is that true? Su Zimo murmured with a lost expression. Even if he thought of that possibility, he was unwilling to believe it in the depths of his heart. 40,000 years ago, the titular disciple of Daming Monastery, the benevolent monk Daming who wanted to suppress the Blood Demon Tao Lord and save the masses, actually ended up in his current state? Actually, Su Zimo already had an answer in his heart. That was because he had cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra before as well. To be precise, he had only cultivated a few dermic arts from the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Even so, he nearly fell into the fiend Dao and became a bloodthirsty fiend. Each time he channeled the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, he would develop a reliance on this cultivation technique. The feeling of being able to obtain endless power through bloodthirst was truly inextricable. Of course, deep in his heart, Su Zimo still believed that the white-robed man had not truly become a fiend like the blood demon Dao Lord. At the very least, the white-robed man still had a sense of longing and nostalgia towards Daming Monastery. Otherwise, the white-robed man would not have returned the complete Mingwang prayer beads to him or let him leave. Perhaps in the white-robed man's heart, he was no longer worthy of carrying this dermic weapon of Daming Monastery, and that was the reason why he handed it to Su Zimo. Of course, all of this was merely Su Zimo's speculation. There were still some doubts that were difficult to explain. For example, if the white-robed man was Monk Daming, why was he locked in that stone coffin? Who was the one who carved the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra in the stone coffin? Could all of this be the doing of the Blood Demon Dao Lord? What was the Blood Demon Dao Lord's motive for doing so? There was also the most important question: was the Blood Demon Dao Lord still alive? Su Zimo could not help but recall the blood-colored human face that appeared in the Thousand-Year Blood Sea in Thousand Demon Valley. Of course, there were still some unexplainable things. If the white-robed man was Monk Daming, it would have been 40,000 years since then. How could Monk Daming live for 40,000 years after being trapped in the stone coffin? Even if there were Mingwang prayer beads in the stone coffin that were made from soul-nurturing wood and could nurture one's essence spirit, it could not extend a cultivator's lifespan. There must be something else that Su Zimo had not considered. After thinking so much and sorting out his speculations, a day and night had passed before he knew it. Coupled with superior-grade elixirs, Qinglian's true body had mostly recovered. Go on. Su Zimo stood up and tapped the mystic mist eagle beneath him with the tip of his foot. He gave it a few bottles of elixirs and a dermic weapon. Upon receiving the reward, the mystic mist eagle could not help but cry into the skies, and the resentment in its heart was swept away. Su Zimo smiled. No matter how fast the mystic mist eagle was, it could not compare to him. His figure turned into a streak of golden light and fled into the distance. Su Zimo had to return to the bamboo forest as soon as possible to hand the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir to Yen Beichen. Chapter 1274. Middle Continent, Bamboo Forest, Wooden Hut. Pian Ran, I feel that you've been distracted for the past few days. What's on your mind? Yen Beichen asked softly with a concerned expression. Qin Pianran frowned slightly with a look of worry in her eyes. I don't know why either, but I've been feeling uneasy recently. Pausing for a moment, Qin Pianran smiled again and pretended to be relaxed. Beichen, don't worry. It's nothing. You should be fine in a few days. Uneasy? However, Yen Beichen shook his head with a grim expression. This is a whim. Given your cultivation, such signs wouldn't appear for no reason. That doesn't make sense. I've already faked my death to escape and even returned the Shura saber. How can there be any danger? Furthermore, even if there's danger, it'll be difficult to find this place. Yen Beichen fell into deep thought and his gaze inadvertently landed on Qin Pianran. His heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? Qin Pianran asked. Yen Beichen was once the titular disciple of Shura sect and had seen too much bloodshed. He was scheming and already had a guess. There were only 2 possibilities for the 2 of them to be exposed. Either someone had followed his trail, or they had followed Qin Pianran's trail. He did not leave any Destiny Jade token in Shura sect. However, Qin Pianran was different. Let's leave this place first. Yen Beichen made a prompt decision and stood up. Grabbing Qin Pianran's hand, he walked outside. Qin Pianran did not ask further. The 2 of them had already pledged their lives to each other. She believed in Yen Beichen and would follow Yen Beichen wherever he went. Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran had just walked out of the wooden house when they suddenly stopped with an ugly expression on their faces. Not far ahead stood a figure in a white Taoist robe, carrying a long sword on his back. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. He stood there like an unsheathed sword, revealing its sharpness. However, this figure seemed to have become one with the heavens and earth, and there was no distinction between them. Senior brother. Qin Pianran also saw this person. Her beautiful face turned pale as she cried out in alarm. The white-robed sword cultivator was none other than the titular disciple of Sword Sect, Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Or rather, Immortal Sword was no longer a titular disciple of the Sword Sect. That was because his aura had clearly surpassed the Dharma characteristic realm and was at the conjoint body realm, making him a mighty figure. Some people had suffered great setbacks and might have perished and become part of the masses. Some people, on the other hand, were able to constantly sharpen themselves in the midst of setbacks, making their blades sharper and stronger. The Immortal Sword was clearly the latter. Back then, he had failed to compete for the heaven-slaying sword art in the Myriad Demon Valley. Thereafter, he was defeated by Extreme Fire in 100 Refinement Sect and was suppressed domineeringly. Even his heaven and earth dharma characteristic was shattered. Later on, outside 100 Refinement Sect, he was intercepted by Yen Beichen, who had just entered the dharma characteristic realm and almost died. In the end, he managed to escape with the help of Qin Pianran. Even so, the consecutive blows and setbacks could not crush him. Instead, he had been cultivating wholeheartedly all these years and was now at the conjoint body realm. Yen Beichen's expression was terrible. Even if he was in his peak condition, he would definitely not be a match for a conjoint body Immortal Sword, let alone his injured essence spirit. Clap, clap, clap. A series of applause sounded from the other side of the bamboo forest. Yen Beichen swept his gaze and his heart gradually sank to the bottom. Tis. As expected of Shura. Even with an injured essence spirit, you can still sense danger in advance. The person sighed and shook his head. Unfortunately, it's already too late. It was the titular disciple of Cloud Rain Sect, Dao Lord Cloud Rain. Back then, Yen Beichen attacked and killed Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the other 9 Dao Lords. Apart from Qin Pianran, only Dao Lord Immortal Sword and Dao Lord Cloud Rain escaped. There was no way the 2 titular disciples would let the humiliation go. Right now, all 4 of them from that battle were here. However, Qin Pianran stood beside Yen Beichen. Immortal Sword's gaze landed on Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran's tightly clenched palms. With a dark expression, he said slowly, "Shura, aren't you dead? You seem to be living quite well." Immortal Sword, Cloud Rain. Now that things have come to this, there's nothing more to say. Against Dao Lord hatred, Yen Beichen had even tried to beg the other party to let him off. However, against Immortal Sword, he knew that he would only be humiliating himself. Back then, I was the one who attacked to kill you guys. It has nothing to do with her. Yen Beichen released Qin Pianran's hand. She was also captured by me all these years and couldn't escape. You can't blame her. Beichen. Qin Pianran's heart ached. She could tell that Yen Beichen knew that he was going to die and only said that to save her life. Beichen, what an affectionate way of addressing you. Dao Lord Cloud Rain waved his folding fan gently and said eccentrically. His eyes scanned Qin Pianran's body brazenly as he said, "Brother Immortal Sword, based on my experience, this woman is no longer a virgin." Sigh. Immortal Sword's face was completely covered in a layer of frost. Although he did not have any feelings for Qin Pianran, there was no way he could tolerate this woman leaping into someone else's embrace. Especially after hearing Dao Lord Cloud Rain's words, he felt even more humiliated. Senior brother, I and Beichen have already left the cultivation world. We won't have anything to do with the cultivation world anymore. Qin Pianran begged bitterly, "Senior brother, please show mercy and let us off." "Shut up." Immortal Sword had a menacing expression as he hollered, "How dare you talk to me and call me senior brother, you cheap slut." Qin Pianran's face turned pale when she heard the word, cheap slut. No matter what, she was from the same sect as Immortal Sword and could be considered as childhood sweethearts. In fact, they were even the golden couple that everyone in Sword Sect envied. Thousands of years of friendship were exchanged for that vicious word. Yen Beichen's eyes were filled with rage as well as he shouted, "Immortal Sword, Are you even worthy of being a titular disciple of Sword Sect? Back then, Pianran saved you above 100 Refinement Sect. If she hadn't attacked outside 100 Refinement Sect, you would have been slain by me. Anyone in this world can scold Pianran, but you're the only one who doesn't have the right. Immortal Sword sneered, you think you can kill me? Even without this cheap slut, I can still leave unscathed. This time round, Tao Lord Cloud Rain did not say anything. At that time, he was on the battlefield and naturally saw everything clearly. If not for Qin Pianran, Immortal Sword would have been a dead man. Tao Lord Cloud Rain pursed his lips and sneered internally, what do you mean by the righteous immortal sex? Even the people of the fiend sex are ashamed of their ingrates. Now that he was on the same side as Immortal Sword, he naturally would not say those words. To think that I, Shura, was once on par with someone like you. How disgusting! Yen Beichen spat. You're no longer worthy of being on par with me, Immortal Sword said coldly, that's because dead people are not qualified. Chapter 1275. Pianran, try your best to escape. Yen Beichen sent a voice transmission secretly, I'm the one they want to kill. I'll hold them back. As long as you escape and find Zimo, he'll naturally take revenge for me. You want to escape? Suddenly, Immortal Sword's voice sounded with a hint of mockery. Since I've found this place, I won't give you guys any chances. Immortal Sword smiled indifferently and waved his hand. Elder Qin, come on out. This lowly servant betrayed Sword Sect and is already with the greatest fiend of the fiend sections. I'll leave her to you. Ice. A sigh sounded from the bamboo forest. A middle-aged woman with a sword on her back walked out and looked at Qin Pianran with a conflicted expression, shaking her head. Pianran, you're silly. W are you? Another conjoint body mighty figure. Yen Beichen's heart sank. He knew that the chances of the two of them leaving this place alive were extremely slim. Master. When Qin Pianran saw this person, his heart skipped a beat and he could not help but exclaim. She could betray Sword Sect and even attack Immortal Sword. However, there was no way she could attack Elder Qin. She was once an orphan abandoned in the chaos of war. Elder Qin was the one who rescued her, raised her and took her in as a disciple. Her surname was the same as Elder Qin's. Elder Qin was Qin Pianran's master. However, in her heart, Elder Qin was more like her mother. All these years, she had been living in seclusion with Yen Beichen without any news. The person she felt the most guilty towards was Elder Qin. Qin Pianran had not expected Immortal Sword to bring Elder Qin over. Pianran, I heard from Immortal Sword that you've already betrayed the sect and are with the Shura of the fiend sections. Initially, I did not believe it. But now, Elder Qin didn't continue speaking and let out a long sigh. Master! Qin Pianran's voice sounded like she was about to cry as well. Elder Qin could not help but ask, Pianran, have you been wronged all these years? If you feel wronged, just tell me. I will avenge you and kill this Shura demon with my own hands. No, Pianran has been very happy all these years. Qin Pianran shook his head. Elder Qin wanted to say something but hesitated. How could Qin Pianran not understand the meaning behind Elder Qin's words? Elder Qin was reminding her that if she scolded Shura and left Yen Beichen, Elder Qin would be able to protect her. But how could Qin Pianran say those words? Immortal Sword frowned as he listened from the side. He could not help but urge, Elder Qin, you can't be thinking of favoritism, right? Betraying the sect and having an affair with the devil. These two crimes are punishable by death and are unforgivable. You'd better hurry up and carry out the sect rules. Elder Qin's expression changed. He was silent for a long time before he slowly drew the long sword on his back. He hardened his heart and said, Pianran, make your move. Let me see how much you've improved over the years. Qin Pianran merely shook his head and sobbed. Master, I won't attack you no matter what. Even if you don't attack, I won't let you off. Elder Qin hollered and waved his sword. A series of sword chi burst forth from his body and charged towards Qin Pianran. Just as Yen Beichen was about to make a move, Immortal Sword and Tao Lord Cloud Rain moved and formed a triangular formation, sandwiching him in the middle. Shura, to think that you would have a day like this too. Immortal Sword smiled gently and finally revealed a smug expression. His reputation in the cultivation world had plummeted after that crushing defeat more than 10 years ago. All these years, he had endured humiliation for the sake of today, for this very moment. The villain has the upper hand, Yen Beichen said coldly. It was truly my mistake for not killing you back then. Since that's the case, I'll give you another chance, Immortal Sword smiled. Let's have another life and death battle. How about it just the two of us? On the surface, this was an opportunity. However, Yen Beichen was at the Dharma characteristic realm and his essence spirit was severely injured. Even the Shura saber had been returned to Shura sect. However, Immortal Sword was already a conjoint body mighty figure. There was no suspense in this battle. Tao Lord Cloud Rain shrugged. Since that's the case, I'll just watch from the sidelines. Yen Beichen was silent. His gaze swept past the battlefield at the side. Elder Qin attacked continuously. However, Qin Pianran was dodging the entire time and refused to attack. However, against Elder Qin's attacks, Qin Pianran's space to dodge was getting smaller. Bang! All of a sudden, Yen Beichen felt a severe blow to his chest. Before he could react, he was already sent flying and rolled dozens of feet away, smashing into a row of bamboos. Tao Lord Immortal Sword had suddenly attacked and punched Yen Beichen's chest. How dare you be distracted in front of me? Are you looking down on me? Immortal Sword walked towards Yen Beichen slowly with a mocking expression and a cold smile. Given his current cultivation realm, it was way too easy for him to kill Yen Beichen. Just now, a single punch could penetrate Yen Beichen's chest. However, he did not. For Immortal Sword, there was no thrill in killing Yen Beichen with a single punch. He wanted to torture Yen Beichen bit by bit. That was the only way he could make up for all the criticism he had suffered over the years and vent all the resentment in his heart. Qin Pianran was shocked when he saw Yen Beichen being defeated. In a momentary daze, a wound appeared on his body and he could not help but exclaim. When Yen Beichen saw that Qin Pianran was injured, his eyes seemed to spit flames as he struggled to stand up, wanting to help Qin Pianran. However, the moment he stood up, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had already arrived before him and raised his leg gently, kicking him in the chest. That kick was neither light nor heavy. However, Yen Beichen could not withstand it and the pain in his heart was unbearable as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Does it feel terrible? Are you in a hurry? Ha! Immortal Sword burst into laughter without any restraint. The feeling of trampling Yen Beichen beneath his feet and trampling on him wantonly was exhilarating. The resentment he had accumulated over the years was finally appeased. Right now, even the mighty Shura had to kneel before him. Immortal Sword wanted Yen Beichen to watch helplessly as Qin Pianran died in front of him. Bang! Yen Beichen tried to stand up but was sent flying by Immortal Sword once more. Yen Beichen coughed out mouthfuls of blood and lowered his head, as though he was powerless to resist. Tao Lord Immortal Sword arrived before him once more and looked down at Yen Beichen with a relaxed expression. All of a sudden, a saber suddenly appeared in Yen Beichen's hands. Kill! Yen Beichen leaped into the air and let out a deep growl from the depths of his throat. In reverse, he slashed towards Immortal Sword's throat. That was the ultimate killing move of the Shura saber. The two of them were extremely close and Yen Beichen had endured for a long time. He wanted to make use of the moment Immortal Sword relaxed to counterattack. This was his only chance. If the two of them were to fight head-on, he would not be a match for them at all. The saber was already pressed against Immortal Sword's throat. However, Immortal Sword was motionless, as though he could not react or even dodge. Clang! The saber slashed against Tao Lord Immortal Sword's throat, but the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Yen Beichen's eyes dimmed. Tao Lord Immortal Sword smirked and reached out gently to clamp the saber at his throat, saying indifferently, "You truly know nothing about my strength." The moment he said that, the saber snapped. Chapter 1276. At the conjoint body realm, Immortal Sword had already fused his 89 feet tall heaven and earth dharma characteristic into his body and tempered it with the lifeless sword chi. His flesh was indestructible. The saber in Yen Beichen's hand was only a Dao Lord Dermic weapon. Compared to the sharpness of the Shura saber, it was way too inferior and could not hurt Immortal Sword at all. Immortal Sword reached out and grabbed Yen Beichen by the throat, lifting him from the spot. Under Immortal Sword's palm, Yen Beichen's throat made a jarring sound, as though it could be crushed at any moment. Yen Beichen's face flushed red and he could no longer resist. He was in complete despair. He struggled and trembled as he turned his face and tried his best to look in the direction of Qin Pianran. His vision turned blurry, but his eyes were filled with endless worry and reluctance. "You must be feeling terrible and helpless, right?" Immortal Sword could not help but laugh when he saw Yen Beichen in such a state. However, his tone was extremely sinister. "I've been waiting for this day all these years. I'm going to make you repay the humiliation and pain I suffered double." Yen Beichen's lips twitched, as though he was laughing. "What are you laughing at?" Immortal Sword truly could not imagine how Yen Beichen could still laugh when he was already in such a state. "I'm dead. Why, you won't be able to survive either." Yen Beichen's voice was as soft as a mosquito and intermittent. However, Immortal Sword heard it clearly. "Oh!" Immortal Sword sneered. "Yen Beichen, you're a dead man to begin with. Who would care if I kill a dead man? Your essence spirit is severely injured and you're no longer worthy of the title of Shura. Would the Shura sect take revenge for you? What a joke." In other words, I'm already at the conjoint body realm. Who would dare to be my enemy? Yen Beichen's lips twitched again. His eyes were bloodshot, but they shone with mockery. "Oh, I got it," Immortal Sword said in realization. "You're counting on Araki Takashi, right? Back then, for Araki Takashi, you dared to kill us right after you entered the Dharma plane. The relationship between the two of you is indeed extraordinary. However, I can tell you that even if Araki Takashi didn't come to me, I would have gone to him. He stole the heaven-slaying sword art from my hands. I'll make him spit it all out." This was indeed what Immortal Sword was thinking. Now that he had come out of seclusion, the first people he wanted to deal with were Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran. The second person to be dealt with was Su Zimo. Immortal Sword said proudly, "I want to tell the entire cultivation world that the sharpness of my Immortal Sword is not to be touched. Anyone who dares to oppose my Immortal Sword will be killed without mercy." This sentence was filled with endless killing intent, and it spread throughout the bamboo forest. In that instant, countless birds and beasts in the bamboo forest were killed. Just the murderous aura in the words of a mighty figure had such power. What big words! At this moment, a loud shout came from the distant horizon. The expressions of everyone present changed. Who would dare to provoke Immortal Sword in such a manner? Dao Lord Cloud Rain was once equally famous as Immortal Sword and was also a titular disciple. However, after Immortal Sword entered the conjoint body realm, he tactfully lowered his head and respected Immortal Sword. Dao Lord Cloud Rain looked over. The person arrived extremely quickly. When he said the first word, he was still far away in the horizon and could not be seen. However, by the time he said the last word, a figure had already appeared in Dao Lord Cloud Rain's vision. Green robes and black hair. He stepped through the air and transformed into a streak of golden light. The power of thunder surged around his body and he emitted an extremely terrifying aura. It was Su Zimo who had rushed back from the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. "Araki Takashi!" Dao Lord Cloud Rain recognized Su Zimo right away and his eyes shone brightly. "Haha!" Immortal Sword reared his head in laughter. "Everyone's here. Araki Takashi, you came at the right time. Saves me the trouble of looking for you personally." When Yen Beichen heard Su Zimo's voice, he was not happy at all. Instead, he was worried. He believed that one day, Su Zimo would be able to surpass Immortal Sword and trample him beneath his feet to avenge him. However, now was not the time. Immortal Sword had already entered the conjoint body realm. As for Su Zimo, he was only at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. Even with 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, he was probably not a match for Immortal Sword. Furthermore, Immortal Sword was not the only one here. There was another conjoint body mighty figure of Sword Sect and Tao Lord Cloud Rain. It would be difficult for Su Zimo to win if he wanted to fight the 3 of them alone. Immortal Sword loosened his grip and threw Yen Beichen beneath his feet, sneering coldly, "Yen Beichen, aren't you counting on Araki Takashi to avenge you? I'll let you witness with your own eyes how Araki Takashi dies in my hands." Immortal Sword's hatred for Yen Beichen surpassed everyone else. He wanted Yen Beichen to endure all the pain he could. He wanted Yen Beichen to witness with his own eyes how the people around him left one by one helplessly. "Tao brother Immortal Sword, there's no need to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Leave this lad to me." Tao Lord Cloud Rain stood out and volunteered, "There's a feud between me and Araki Takashi as well. Back then, if not for him, my clone would not have died in Thousand Demon Valley." "All right," Immortal Sword nodded and said with a fake smile, "however, you can't hog that lad's treasures alone." Tao Lord Cloud Rain's heart skipped a beat. Although Immortal Sword sounded like he was joking, he could tell that Immortal Sword was warning him not to have any other thoughts. The longer he interacted with Immortal Sword, the more Tao Lord Cloud Rain could sense that Immortal Sword was an extremely selfish person who did not care about his family. That was the reason why, although Tao Lord Cloud Rain was close to Immortal Sword all these years, he had always kept a lookout and maintained his guard. As that thought flashed through his mind, Su Zimo had already arrived. "Araki Takashi, I heard that you've condensed 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and can kill conjoint body mighty figures across major cultivation realms. Let's see how strong you are at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm." Tao Lord Cloud Rain welcomed him fearlessly. He was a titular disciple. As a titular disciple, which of them did not have the combat strength to kill opponents across major cultivation realms? In the past few thousand years, countless conjoint body mighty figures had died in his hands. Tao Lord Cloud Rain had been famous for a long time and was the second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. How many years had it been since Su Zimo entered the Dharma characteristic realm? It was less than 20 years ago at the very most. Therefore, Tao Lord Cloud Rain truly did not think much of Su Zimo. In his opinion, the so-called 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were nothing more than empty bravado. Even if he released a Dharmic art, he could penetrate Su Zimo's 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. 7 emotions threads. Tao Lord Cloud Rain conjured hand seals and his gaze landed on Su Zimo. All of a sudden, threads appeared around Su Zimo's body. They were incomparably sharp and colorful. The 7 emotions threads was the ultimate skill of Cloud Rain sect. Be it cultivators or fiends, all of them had 7 emotions and 6 desires that made use of the 7 emotions produced in the bodies of living beings. In other words, the 7 emotions, joy, anger, worry, longing, sorrow, fear and shock, were condensed into threads that exploded within a cultivator's body and spread rapidly. As long as one had 7 emotions, they would be restrained by the 7 emotions threads. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, there were countless high-level fiend demons that died to the 7 emotions threads. Chapter 1277. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, it was only an external clone of Tao Lord Cloud Rain. But now, the one who released the 7 emotions threads was Tao Lord Cloud Rain's true body. At that moment, the 7 emotions threads were even stronger and more treacherous. It was impossible to defend against. The moment Su Zimo charged forward, colorful threads appeared on the surface of his body. Furthermore, there were more and more of them and they could not be severed. They were densely packed and tightened continuously, wanting to cut his Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Among the 7 emotions, joy, anger, worry, longing, sorrow, fear and shock, his anger was the most obvious. Those threads were also derived from the wrath of the 7 emotions. It was difficult to defend against that Dharmic art head-on. That was because every single 7 emotions thread was derived from Su Zimo's own strength. The 7 emotions threads could only be neutralized through other means. All of a sudden, Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and chanted an obscure sutra. As he chanted the sutra, the 7 emotions threads on Su Zimo's body decreased and were disappearing at a visible speed. It was a Buddhist incantation, the heart meditation mantra. The 7 emotions were born from the heart. With a calm heart and clear mind, the 7 emotions would naturally dissipate. At that moment, the anger in Su Zimo's heart seemed to have dissipated. A single Buddhist incantation was enough to destroy Cloud Rain Sek's ultimate skill. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo's footsteps did not stop at all. All right. Tao Lord Cloud Rain was not surprised either. With a backhand slap, he pressed down viciously towards Su Zimo through the void. Endless dermic powers gathered in Tao Lord Cloud Rain's palm. A gigantic handprint appeared in the void. Tao Lord Cloud Rain slapped 6 times in succession. 6 gigantic handprints appeared. 6 desires palm, condense. As Tao Lord Cloud Rain hollered, the 6 gigantic handprints fused together rapidly, forming an extremely terrifying dermic power handprint that crushed down with a terrifying might. If the 7 emotions threads were said to be treacherous, the 6 desires palm was one of Cloud Rain Sek's most lethal dermic arts. Me! Su Zimo's eyes were like torches as he chanted Sanskrit. The 5th syllable of the 6-syllable damning mantra exploded. The entire space trembled as well. The 6 desires palm imprint also paused momentarily under the influence of the damning mantra's sound domain mystic technique. Su Zimo's 5 fingers closed together and bent, condensing into a handprint. It was like a fist, yet not a palm, as if he was holding a wheel. The 5th seal of the damning Dharma seal, the Great Vajra Wheel seal. Among the damning dermic seals, the last 2 Great Vajra Wheel seal and Great Mount Meru seal were the most ferocious and unstoppable. Su Zimo had practiced the Deming scripture before, and he wore the Mingwang prayer beads all year round. Therefore, it was easy for him to practice the remaining 2 seals. On the way here, he had already comprehended something. Boom! As Su Zimo released the dermic seal, a gigantic golden palm suddenly appeared in midair. Its 5 fingers were closed and bent, resembling a gigantic golden wheel that shone with a blinding light. The Vajra wheel carried a boundless might and was incomparably sacred as it smashed towards the 6 desires palm imprint. Boom! There was a deafening bang. Immediately after, Tao Lord Cloud Rain's expression changed starkly. Right in front of him, cracks appeared on the surface of the 6 desires palm imprint and extended continuously. In the blink of an eye, they were densely packed. How is that possible? Tao Lord Cloud Rain was shocked. He had been at the Dharma characteristic realm for so many years, but his dermic powers were not even a match for a mid-stage Dharma characteristic. Crack, crack, crack. In midair, the Vajra wheel did not stop at all and continued rolling forward, crushing the 6 desires palm imprint completely. Rumble. Boom. The remaining might of the 6 desires palm imprint did not stop and continued crushing in the direction of Tao Lord Cloud Rain, as though it wanted to crush him into dust. Boom! Tao Lord Cloud Rain had a grim expression as a loud bang sounded from within his body. A phantom appeared above his head and rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it was already 88 feet tall. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. Under the pressure of the Great Vajra Wheel seal, Tao Lord Cloud Rain had no choice but to conjure his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. The Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic punched and dispersed the Great Vajra Wheel seal. After the Great Vajra Wheel seal was crushed, it did not have much dermic powers left and naturally could not defend against Tao Lord Cloud Rain's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. Boom! A phantom appeared within his body as well. A heavenly fiend Dharma body that was 87 feet tall and shrouded in pitch-black fiend chi descended into the world in black armor with a pitch-black scythe in its hands. Roar! The fiend eyes of the heavenly fiend Dharma body shone with 2 pitch-black glows. When it caught sight of the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic opposite, it roared. Swoosh! The heavenly fiend Dharma body strode forward and swung the heavenly fiend's scythe in its hands, slashing down towards Tao Lord Cloud Rain's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Kill! Tao Lord Cloud Rain hollered and controlled his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to charge forward as well. His heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 88 feet tall and was a foot taller than the heavenly fiend Dharma body. The two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics collided violently. Instantly, the weather changed and dust billowed. All of a sudden, Tao Lord Cloud Rain's expression changed starkly. His heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was actually disadvantaged in the fight between the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. How was that possible? A look of disbelief flashed through Tao Lord Cloud Rain's eyes. Su Zimo's heavenly fiend Dharma body was one of the strongest Dharma bodies of the fiend sects to begin with. Cloud Rain sect was not known for their head-on combat strength. The legacy Dharma characteristic of Cloud Rain sect was ranked last among the Dharma characteristics of the fiend sections. Furthermore, the heavenly fiend Dharma body was formed with the Tao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra as its foundation. However, it was fused with many secret skills of the fiend sects. It could be said to be a greater mastery of the cultivation techniques of the fiend sects. Even if Tao Lord Cloud Rain's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was a foot taller, it was not a match for the heavenly fiend Dharma body. Before Tao Lord Cloud Rain's confusion could be answered, the situation on the battlefield changed. An arm of his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was severed by the heavenly fiend scythe, and its dharmic powers were drained rapidly and its strength was greatly reduced. Tao Lord Cloud Rain exclaimed. With a single thought, he controlled his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to retreat rapidly and shouted for help. Tao Brother Immortal Sword, Araki Takeshi is too strong. You have to do it personally. Actually, Tao Lord Cloud Rain was scheming as well. Given his combat strength, he could continue fighting with Su Zimo for a while longer. However, if he did that, he would expend too much energy and could easily fall into danger and lose himself. Since Su Zimo was so troublesome, he could not care less about his reputation and made a prompt decision to let Immortal Sword and Su Zimo fight while he watched from the sidelines. Immortal Sword sneered and leaped into midair in a flash. He glared at the heavenly fiend Dharma body that was charging over and shouted, "A mere heaven and earth Dharma characteristic can't even withstand a single blow." Clang. He did not see Immortal Sword's actions at all. Accompanied by the sound of a sword being unsheathed, a bedazzling sword beam descended and slashed towards the heavenly fiend Dharma body viciously. Before the sword beam descended, a clear crack appeared on the chest of the heavenly fiend Dharma body. The might of a single sword strike was so terrifying. Chapter 1278. Immortal Sword was the number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. His heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 89 feet tall and was infinitely close to a supreme Dharma characteristic. Fusion was the fusion of a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic with one's body. In other words, the stronger the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the more terrifying the body of a conjoint body would be. That was the reason why Yenbeichen's saber could not cut through Immortal Sword's flesh when it slashed his throat. After entering the conjoint body realm, Immortal Sword's combat strength increased exponentially and his sword chi shone brightly. The moment he attacked, the sword beam was about to tear the heavenly fiend Dharma body apart. In the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could even fight against conjoint body mighty figures of supersections. But now, it could not defend against a single sword beam from Immortal Sword. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. If one heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could not defend against it, 2 would do. If 2 would not do, 3 would do. Bang, bang. With a single thought from Su Zimo, 2 phantoms suddenly darted out of his body and rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they grew into indomitable mighty spirits. One of the figures had boundless arcs of lightning coiled around his entire body, and he held a dazzling and resplendent lightning whip in his hand. Dark clouds covered his head, and he seemed like a god that controlled lightning, causing him to possess a terrifying and imposing aura. The other figure was dressed in monk robes and had a lowered gaze. He had a dignified expression and was covered in a layer of golden light. He was sacred and flawless and emitted halos behind him that could not be looked at directly. The thunderdermic body and ruli-dermic body descended at the same time. Su Zimo did not hold back at all, and his 3 dermic bodies descended at the same time. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's expression changed when he saw that, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Prior to this, the cultivation world only knew that Araki Takashi had condensed 2 heaven and earth dharma characteristics. Apart from the cultivators who died in the Tao inheritance ground, not many people knew that Su Zimo had 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics. Furthermore, the 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics had already grown to a height of 87 feet. What did that mean? Tao Lord Cloud Rain felt lucky. Fortunately, when he saw that the situation was not good, he made a prompt decision and retreated first, allowing the immortal sword to block it. Just now, if he retreated slightly slower, he wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow from these 3 heaven and earth dharma appearances and would be blasted into smithereens. Even Immortal Sword's heart skipped a beat and his pupils constricted, let alone Tao Lord Cloud Rain. But in the blink of an eye, the long whip in the Thunder Dharma body's hand lashed out at the sword light in the air. The sword light instantly dimmed a lot. Clang. Immediately after, the heavenly demon scythe collided with the sword radiance, causing sparks to fly and an ear-piercing sound to be heard. The sharpness of the sword light was greatly reduced. Bang! The ruli-dermic body extended its golden palm and pressed down gently, turning the sword beam into nothingness and dissipating. 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics descended at the same time and blocked the sword of the conjoint body Immortal Sword. Good, good, good. Immortal Sword nodded repeatedly. Let's see how many of my sword strikes your 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics can block. Lifeless sword art / The moment he said that, Immortal Sword conjured a sword art and slashed forward with his right hand. The sword tore through the air and its sharpness seemed to tear the void into 2 like a bolt of lightning that streaked through the night sky in a bedazzling manner. As the sword descended, all the vitality in the void was instantly sucked clean. The lifeless sword art severed all life. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics moved at the same time and attacked. Instantly, the battlefield in midair was filled with endless thunder, Sanskrit, golden light, fiend chi and sword chi. Even the void was trembling. The more Immortal Sword fought, the more alarmed he became. Although he had the upper hand, it was impossible for him to shatter Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics within a short period of time. He was already at the conjoint body realm. Even so, he was still in a stalemate against Su Zimo. If Su Zimo were to cultivate to late stage or perfected dharma characteristic realm and his heaven and earth dharma characteristics grew once more, what would happen? At that thought, the killing intent in Immortal Sword's heart intensified. Immortal Sword's essence spirit was already pushed to its limits. Using sword escape, he transformed into a sword beam. His sword and heaven and earth had already fused perfectly and were indistinguishable from each other. Destroy! 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 Immortal Sword slashed out 3 times in succession. When those 3 slashes descended, all living beings in the world felt as though a calamity was imminent. Even Tao Lord Cloud Rain, who was outside the battlefield, could sense his life force seeping out of his body. Immortal Sword's sword Tao was terrifying. The 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics were already showing signs of dissipating. Immortal Sword hollered, "Araki Takashi, how dare you fight with me for the heaven-slaying sword art? You're courting death. Even immortals can't save you. Since you want the heaven-slaying sword art so much, I'll let you have your fill." Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he closed his fingers and conjured a sword art. Facing Immortal Sword, he released hundreds of sword chi in succession. A single heaven-slaying sword chi could kill ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. What sort of scene would it be if hundreds of heaven-slaying sword chi were released at the same time? They were densely packed and tore through heaven and earth. This was practically apocalyptic. When he was at the Void Reversion Realm, A single heaven-slaying sword chi took an immense toll on Su Zimo. But now that he was at the Dharma characteristic realm, the power of his essence spirit had increased exponentially and was enough for him to release hundreds of heaven-slaying sword chi. Su Zimo was truly enraged when he saw Immortal Sword targeting Yen Beichen. The feud between Yen Beichen and Immortal Sword and the others was all because of him. He did not dare to imagine what would have happened if he had returned a step slower. In Su Zimo's heart, Yen Beichen had the same status as Su Hong. Now that Su Hong was dead, he would not allow anything to happen to Yen Beichen. Immortal Sword wanted to kill Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo had no intention of letting Immortal Sword leave either. Therefore, he released his full strength and his essence spirit was almost exhausted. Immortal Sword was shocked. No matter how strong the lifeless sword art was, it was deduced from the earth-slaying sword art. Naturally, it was not as powerful as the earth-slaying sword art or the heaven-slaying sword art. Now that hundreds of heaven-slaying sword chi had descended, the three heaven and earth dharma characteristics had attacked at the same time and collided with his lifeless sword Dao with a loud bang. Countless sword chi splattered. The three heaven and earth dharma characteristics were already riddled with holes and could dissipate at any moment. Immortal Sword was in an even more tragic state and his Dao robes were torn instantly. Bloody wounds could be seen all over his body. His lifeless sword Dao dissipated instantly against the combined attack of Su Zimo's hundreds of heaven-slaying sword chi and three heaven and earth dharma characteristics. Immortal Sword was already covered in wounds. Even his conjoint body could not withstand the sharpness of the sword chi. Of course, after entering the conjoint body realm, his body was filled with vitality. In the blink of an eye, the wounds on Immortal Sword's body healed and stopped bleeding. However, there was a deep look of fear in the depths of Immortal Sword's eyes. It was way too scary. For a moment earlier, he felt a sense of trepidation that he had not felt in a long time. Looking at Su Zimo who was charging over with a murderous aura, Immortal Sword suddenly had the thought of retreating. He could not figure out Su Zimo's strength. If Su Zimo were to release another attack like that, he would probably die as well. Chapter 1279. The commotion caused by that attack shocked the two people on the other side of the battlefield. Elder Qin stopped her attacks and glanced over. Then, she retracted her gaze and looked at Qin Pianran with a conflicted expression. Qin Pianran did not retaliate the entire time. In reality, Elder Qin had not attacked with her full strength the entire time. She was a conjoint body mighty figure. Given her cultivation, if she wanted to kill Qin Pianran who was at the Dharma characteristic realm with her full strength, the latter would definitely not be able to last more than 10 breaths. Qin Pianran treated her as family but so did she. No matter what, she watched Qin Pianran grow up bit by bit. No one could compare to her feelings for him. Even if Qin Pianran committed a grave mistake, he was nothing more than a child in her eyes. Master! Qin Pianran understood Elder Qin's feelings for her and could not help but exclaim softly as tears streamed down his face once more. On the battlefield, the situation changed. Immortal Sword's intention to retreat was just a flash of thought. Suddenly he shouted, "Cloud Rain, I'll hold back Araki Takashi. Hurry and kill Shura. Don't let anything else happen." Just now, Dao Lord Cloud Rain had retreated and was right beside Yen Beichen. Immortal Sword's words were extremely sudden and Dao Lord Cloud Rain felt that something was amiss. However, he could not figure it out within a short period of time. He merely felt that Yen Beichen was right beside him and he could kill him casually. That was nothing much. Given Yen Beichen's current state, he was already a cripple and nothing unexpected would happen. At that thought, Dao Lord Cloud Rain extended his folding fan and tapped Yen Beichen's head fiercely. That strike was enough to penetrate Yen Beichen's head. "How dare you!" Right then, Dao Lord Cloud Rain heard a ferocious roar that resembled the roar of a ferocious beast. It was like a thunderclap that caused his ears to sting and his mind to buzz. Immediately after that, he felt an extremely horrifying aura assault his face, and it carried boundless killing intent and fury. Tao Lord Cloud Rain looked over instinctively and saw that Su Zimo had already changed directions. He gave up on chasing after Immortal Sword and transformed into a golden beam of light that arrived before him. On the other side, Immortal Sword had already turned and fled into the distance. Tao Lord Cloud Rain suddenly understood. All these years, he had been wary of Immortal Sword. To think that he would still be plotted against him. The reason why Immortal Sword wanted him to kill the Azura was to lure Su Zimo away so that he could escape. Immortal Sword knew that Yen Beichen was even more important in Su Zimo's heart. Therefore, when he got Tao Lord Cloud Rain to kill Yen Beichen, Su Zimo would definitely save Yen Beichen right away. In this way, he would have enough time and space to escape. Of course, Tao Lord Cloud Rain was most likely doomed. However, that was nothing to him. As long as he could leave this place alive, everyone in the world could die. It was already too late for Tao Lord Cloud Rain to understand everything. That was because Su Zimo had already arrived before him. In reality, given Su Zimo's intelligence, he understood Immortal Sword's scheme in a flash. However, he had no choice. Although killing Immortal Sword was important, it could not compare to Yen Beichen's life. Furthermore, in Su Zimo's opinion, even if Immortal Sword escaped first, he would be able to catch up. Boom! Tao Lord Cloud Rain controlled his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic and charged towards Su Zimo. Behind Su Zimo, the 3 Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics charged over as well. Although the 3 Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics were already riddled with holes, they were not something that a 88 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic could defend against. The 4 Dharma characteristics collided with a loud bang. Tao Lord Cloud Rain shuddered and staggered in retreat with a pale expression. He said hurriedly, "Martial Lord, please calm down. I have no intention of harming Shura at all. It's all Immortal Sword. He wants to kill with a borrowed knife." "You're the one I'm going to kill." Su Zimo did not waste time talking to him at all. 54 green beams of light flew out from his glabella and condensed into a shimmering green sword that slashed towards Tao Lord Cloud Rain. Pissed, Tao Lord Cloud Rain's expression changed in shock. With his cultivation, he could naturally sense the terrifying power contained within the green long sword. It was a killing technique that targeted the essence spirit. Araki Takashi is too ruthless. He's not giving me a way out at all. Tao Lord Cloud Rain roared internally. Seeing that he could not escape, he stopped retreating and conjured his essence spirit secret skill right away, preparing to counterattack. All of a sudden, Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit. The 6th Daming Mantra was released. Tao Lord Cloud Rain shuddered and his essence spirit secret skill was slightly slower. Qinglian's sword entered his glabella instantly and pierced his consciousness, slashing towards his essence spirit. Tao Lord Cloud Rain bit the tip of his tongue gently and released his essence spirit secret skill at the brink of death, colliding fiercely against Qinglian's sword. However, the collision this time round happened in his consciousness. However, the residual force from this collision had already caused cracks to appear on his primordial spirit. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's gaze dimmed as he spat out a mouthful of blood and his life force drained rapidly. With his essence spirit shattered, he could no longer survive. He was the titular disciple of Cloud Rain sect and was once the 2nd on the Dharma characteristic ranking. He had dominated the cultivation world for 5,000 years, but eventually, he died in this unknown bamboo forest. Immortal Sword. Good. Ruthless. Those were the final words that came out of Tao Lord Cloud Rain's mouth. Before his death, the resentment in his heart was not directed at Su Zimo, but Immortal Sword. With a thud, Tao Lord Cloud Rain fell to the ground with widened eyes, dying with grievances. In reality, Tao Lord Cloud Rain did not know that Immortal Sword's ruthlessness was even more terrifying than what he had witnessed and imagined. "Pianran, I know that you've suffered a lot over the years," Elder Qin sighed gently. All these years, Qin Pianran had placed all his attention on Immortal Sword. How could she not see that? However, Immortal Sword's attitude towards Qin Pianran was always lukewarm. Elder Qin said with a pained heart, "However, no matter what, You can't mix around with a fiend of the fiend's sex and become Dao companions. Master, I'm sorry. Qin Pianran lowered his head and cried. Right then, something happened on the other side of the battlefield. Immortal Sword escaped. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was dead. When she saw that, Elder Qin sighed internally and sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Pianran, since Immortal Sword has left, you should leave as well. I hope you can take care of yourself in the future. Master. A look of disbelief flashed through Qin Pianran's eyes as she raised her head instinctively. The moment she saw it, her face turned pale and she looked terrified. Behind Elder Qin, the menacing face of Immortal Sword appeared. His features were contorted and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Old thing, I knew that you were soft-hearted. Immortal Sword's cold voice sounded slowly. Since that's the case, I'll send the two of you on your way. Elder Qin was caught off guard. A sword pierced her head instantly and her essence spirit was destroyed on the spot. She had not expected that Immortal Sword would attack her. Master. Qin Pianran roared and lunged forward in a frenzy. A sword beam entered Qin Pianran's glabella. Qin Pianran was stunned and froze on the spot as his gaze dimmed. Chapter 1280. Yen Beichen froze on the spot with widened eyes and quivering lips. He looked at everything in disbelief, as though he wanted to shout but he could not make a single sound. Qin Pianran's life force drained rapidly. Her essence spirit was pierced by the sword beam and even an immortal would not be able to save her. The reason why she did not die immediately was because she had consumed the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir and her essence spirit was not destroyed on the spot. Qin Pianran turned around slowly and looked at Yen Beichen in the distance with a gentle expression. Her eyes were filled with reluctance and longing. They had been together for way too short a time. Initially, they wanted to leave the cultivation world and spend the rest of their lives together. Unfortunately, everything was over. Beichen, I can't stay anymore. Qin Pianran's tone was weak, as though every single word she said was draining her life force. It can't stay by your side any longer. You have to. Alright. Qin Pianran could no longer breathe. She felt miserable and thought about how Yen Beichen would be left alone after her departure. She did not know what sort of torment he would have to endure in the future and could not help but sigh before collapsing onto the ground. In the skies, the white clouds changed. Countless images flashed before her eyes. They were all scenes of her and Yen Beichen in the bamboo forest and the wooden house over the years. Eventually, there was only a figure left in her eyes. With that figure, she closed her eyes. Yen Beichen did not move at all and merely watched everything in a daze. His body trembled slightly and he felt a sharp pain in his chest, as though a sharp weapon was stabbing him repeatedly. He had once said that even if Qin Pianran wanted to leave, he would not let go. He had once promised Qin Pianran that he would spend the rest of his life with her and never leave her. But now, he could only watch helplessly as Qin Pianran left. There was nothing he could do. But what did I do wrong? What did Pianran do wrong? We want to leave the world of cultivation. Why don't you let us? Why do you have to come to our door and separate us? Yen Beichen's fingers dug deep into the soil. His eyes were red and his heart was filled with endless hatred. He hated the world, hated Dao Lord Immortal Sword, hated Dao Lord Cloud Rain, hated the Sword Sect, hated the cultivation world, and hated everything. He even resented himself. He hated himself for not being able to detect the danger earlier and leave this place. He hated himself for being useless. She could only watch helplessly as her beloved died in front of her. This hatred was endless. It soared into the sky, almost condensing into solid form and piercing through heaven and earth. Yen Beichen's body emitted streams of demonic qi. They were pitch black and extremely terrifying. In the depths of this bamboo forest, there was a devil blade that had fallen into a deep slumber. Under the stimulation of this hatred, it gradually awakened. The demonic saber trembled slightly. This intense hatred made it extremely excited. This was the real Li Hen. Without experiencing this heart-wrenching and bone-chilling change, one would never be able to comprehend the true power of the Lihen Sutra. Apart from its first master, even Tao Lord Hatred did not meet the requirements of the Lihen Sutra. That was the reason why when Tao Lord Hatred fought against Su Zimo noticed a flaw and broke it with many incantations of the Buddhist monasteries. Su Zimo gripped his fists tightly with a cold expression. The entire process changed in an instant and he could not react in time. Since Immortal Sword wanted Tao Lord Cloud Rain to kill Yen Beichen, Su Zimo could only save Yen Beichen first. If he chose to save Qin Pianran, Yen Beichen would die. This was Immortal Sword's scheme. This scheme had directly caused the deaths of 3 people. Tao Lord Cloud Rain, Elder Qin and Qin Pianran were all dead. After killing Qin Pianran with the Immortal Sword, he chuckled coldly and turned into a ray of sword light that sped into the distance. There were many escape techniques in the cultivation world. The speed of sword escape was definitely not at the forefront. Immortal Sword believed that given his cultivation realm, Su Zimo would not be able to stop him if he wanted to escape. Immortal Sword, let's see where you can escape to. When he saw Immortal Sword escape, Su Zimo's killing intent reached its limits. He roared and endless thunder surged from his body. At the same time, a pair of dermic power wings grew behind him. His body transformed into a golden beam of light and chased after Immortal Sword. Lightning escape, ethereal wings and ground-traversing golden light were released at the same time. Su Zimo's speed reached its limits and was even faster than Immortal Sword. Before Immortal Sword could escape far, he felt a biting killing intent approaching him. It was as though there was a thorn in his back and his scalp tingled. He looked back and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Su Zimo was right behind him and had already caught up. The distance between the two of them was closing continuously. At this rate, Su Zimo would be able to catch up to him before long. How is that possible? Immortal Sword was shocked and his eyes were flustered. Araki Takashi is only at the Dharma characteristic realm. How can his movement technique reach such a level? Finally, a hint of panic flashed through Immortal Sword's eyes. Su Zimo's strength had completely exceeded his expectations. Don't panic. At that instant, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Immortal Sword was delighted when he heard that voice. With this person by his side, there was no need for him to escape. He could turn around at any time and join forces with this person to kill Araki Takashi. That was because this person was Heavenly Secrets of Enigma Palace. He only knew that Heavenly Secrets was at the conjoint body realm. Even he did not know what level Heavenly Secrets' combat strength was at. The successor of Enigma Palace had always been extremely mysterious. However, Immortal Sword was certain of one thing. Heavenly Secrets' combat strength was definitely above his. Right now, Araki Takashi's 3 heaven and earth dharma characteristics had already dissipated and he released hundreds of heaven-slaying sword chi. The power of his essence spirit must be almost depleted. If the two of them joined forces, they were 100% confident that they could kill Araki Takashi. Furthermore, Heavenly Secrets was still hidden in the dark. Even he hadn't noticed when Tianji had arrived. Immortal Sword gradually slowed down. The distance between him and Su Zimo was closing continuously. When he was less than 100 feet away, Immortal Sword suddenly turned around and an extremely sharp spirit consciousness burst forth from his glabella, condensing into a long sword that pierced towards Su Zimo's head with a shuddering killing intent. Sword Sex Essence Spirit Secret Skill. At the same time, a figure suddenly appeared in the void beside Immortal Sword. He wore loose Taoist robes and had a Confucian crown on his head. He had a faint smile on his face, but his attacks were extremely sharp and merciless. The glabella of the Confucian scholar shone brightly and his spirit consciousness condensed into a gray arrow that tore through the air, as though it could pierce through everything. The Confucian scholar released his Essence Spirit Secret Skill at the same time. That Essence Spirit Secret Skill was even more terrifying and sharp than Immortal Sword. The release of Essence Spirit Secret Skills by 2 conjoint body mighty figures placed Su Zimo in danger instantly. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.